Okay, folks, I think we're live and I can see a few comments coming in. Gary, welcome from Brisbane. We're going to kick off straight away, essentially, and we're going to get started with the keynote for today. So it's from the Global AI Bootcamp, and the main committee have organized a keynote for us. So I'm going to hand it right over there and jump in then. Happened the last time. Okay, Arfat, I feel like... oh my god, it keeps dropping me. Share screen. Let's try this one more time. Okay. Arafat, I'm going to ask you if you could maybe share your screen, and I'll send you the link now, just because I don't seem to be able to share sounds. So bear with us, folks. As usual, welcome to an online event where things just never wanted to go right. So I've got a very lovely volunteer with me who's being very kind and helping out today. I hope you're all joining in from wherever you are and are having a fabulous day so far. And I think Arafat's just popping it up there now in a second, so we will be starting off. But yeah, feel free to chuck in where you're all based from and how it's all going. So I think...
live streaming can be tricky, and sometimes trying to find the right software to make...
Hey everyone, my name is Sami and I'm an AI MVP based in Belgium.
Hi, my name is Sjoukje and I'm an RD and an Azure MVP based in the Netherlands. And today we want to welcome you to the Global AI Bootcamp 2022. And this is the 4th year that this event has been organized globally. Our mission is to connect AI communities across the world to share ideas and content with each other. Thank you so much for joining us on this mission. The Global AI Bootcamp is organized by many different communities across the globe. And therefore, we want to thank each of them for all their hard work and passion as community leaders.
Today, you're all together virtually or physically to get inspired by the latest AI technologies and trends. This might be by a workshop, talks, or hands-on labs that your community leader has prepared for you. Today is all about learning new things about AI and sharing knowledge with each other. We hope that you can apply this in your work, in your community, and even in your daily life. Now, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the AI space. So we would like to invite our friends from Microsoft to go over some of these interesting topics.
Hi everyone, welcome to this Global AI Keynote. My name's Amy Boyd and I'm a Senior Cloud Advocate here at Microsoft. I am a white female with long wavy blonde hair, and today I am wearing a black top with colourful spots on it, which sounds very exciting when I describe it like that. It's not quite as exciting in real life. So it's so great to take part in the Global AI community and the Bootcamp initiative in January. Thank you so much to all the organisers for having us along to speak about AI and accessibility. We're really excited for what we've got in store. And so without further ado, let's get started. I'd like to introduce Saqib, who is our expert for today around the focus of AI and accessibility. Hi, Saqib, how are you doing?
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. And I guess my description of myself is I'm a middle-aged British Asian male with short black hair wearing a blue shirt.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Zagga, me and you used to work together way back when. Oh my goodness, feels so long ago now. I was an intern. You introduced me. You made me feel very, very at
I'm
home
Nick Niman, and I'm a StreamYard user. For the last 6 years, I've been live streaming consistently to YouTube
and I had a wonderful
Facebook.
year on my internship, so thank you so much for that. It's great to be working with you again. I know you, I know what you've been up to, and have been watching along.
Hey
but
everyone,
for those who
my
don't,
name is Sammy, and I'm an
tell us
AI
who you
MVP
are
based
and
in
what you do at
Belgium.
Microsoft.
Hi, my name is Sjoukje.
Yeah,
and
those
I'm
are fun
RD
days for
and
sure.
an Azure MVP based
So,
in the Netherlands.
I'm Sakib Sheikh,
And today
and
we want
I
to
lead a
welcome
team
you to
of
the Global
engineers
AI
here at
Bootcamp
Microsoft working
2022.
on solutions to
And this is
empower
the
people with
fourth year
disabilities
that
to
this
do even
event
more,
has been organized
powered
globally.
by emerging
Our
technologies
mission
like
is to
AI
connect
and
AI
AR.
communities
And in
across the
particular,
world
we
to
make the
share
Seeing
ideas
AI app,
and
which maybe
content
we'll
with
get
each
into later on.
Thank you so much for joining us on
I'm
this
sure
mission.
we will. I'm sure we will. But
The Global
drop
AI
that in
Bootcamp
there to keep people watching, which is great.
And the list goes on and on and
So
on.
give,
But it's this
when
idea
we,
that,
me and Kate
okay,
host
we
a
can
show
use AR
actually
to
called the
figure
A Bit
out
of AI
how are we going
Show.
to present this
And something we
information
do in there is
that
called the
is
Quickfire
inclusive
Questions
of
round.
everyone and
It's
our
very
individual
exciting,
needs.
and I'm quite excited to do a shorter version with you so that our amazing global AI community watchers can get to know you a little bit better. So are you ready for a few quickfire questions?
Okay, let's give this a go.
Wonderful. Okay, so what was your first programming language?
BBC Basic.
Oh, wonderful. That's what we like to hear. What was the programming language you last used on the project?
C# and Python.
Interesting. Two popular choices. And our third question is, what was your first computer?
Yeah, that was a old Toshiba laptop many years ago now.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. A good one to shout out. I was going to say, I think, yeah, I went from like, I could only remember what operating system like my first computer was. So no, very good for even getting on brand there with a with a brand name. Thank you for sharing. So there are a couple of our quick fire questions to get people to just know who you are, your background, you're incredibly technical. On that first computer, I wanted to ask you a little bit, if we could dig into what were some of the accessibility features you were able to use then, and kind of how have things moved on a little bit now?
I think in many ways, the fundamentals have stayed the same. As someone who's blind, I use a screen reader, which is a piece of software which runs in the background, and it looks at what's going on the screen, hooking into different APIs, and speaking out loud using text-to-speech. And that, in many ways, was the same decades ago, and that is still the fundamental today.
Oh, I love it's so interesting, isn't it? Because actually, like you said, if there is this, the fundamentals, and then I'm assuming everything just makes everything slightly easier. I guess it's like that for any tech, though, isn't it? Everything just gets better and better and better, hopefully, in most cases. Following on from that, I was wondering, can you share your perspective on why it's important for our audience to make things accessible? A lot of people in our audience are building different things, and I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
So you say accessible, and clearly accessibility is my passion, but I'd also invite the audience to think about inclusive, because on the internet, your audience is everyone. And out of 7 billion people, there's 1 billion people with some form of disability. So if you want to include everyone, then actually, there's a whole lot of people with different needs. And how do you meet everyone's needs? And so the interesting thing about this is it's even bigger than that, because there are people with permanent disabilities, sure, but then also situational disabilities like having the sun in your eyes or a loud noise in your ears, and temporary disabilities like, just breaking an arm for a while. So you want to be inclusive of everyone. So how do you do this? The big way is to be conscious of who are you excluding, And if you know who you're excluding, then just think about how can you include those people. And even if you can find 1 or 2 examples of people you're helping, make sure you laser focus. We often say, design for one, solve for everyone. And so, yeah, you focus on that and you will include everyone, and you'll be able to make way better solutions as a result. So accessible, inclusive, definitely.
It's such a good highlight. Thank you, Sakib, for sharing as well and breaking it down, because you're right. Like, you think, you know, what 1 billion people, you know, oh my goodness, that's a lot of people. But then you've really broke it down into a few categories there for people to consider, which should, you know, make it a little easier for people to go, okay, yeah, who am I excluding and how do I solve for that problem? Really, really like that approach. Thank you for sharing. One of the other questions kind of looped in the AI element, because I know you're very passionate about AI and accessibility, are 2 key topics here, and bringing them together. What tools and services are making the biggest impact in the AI and accessibility space? Probably thinking from the bigger picture.
Yeah, so deep learning, as I'm sure the audience knows, is really improving every year, faster and faster, more and more. And if you think about people, I was going to say people with disabilities, but technology can really close that gap. So it's less about disability and more about, you know, have you got the right tools to close your gap? Like for people who are blind, we now have computer vision tech that can recognize what's in images. And that's what our Cnai project is about. For people who are hard of hearing, we've got tech which is getting better each year at understanding, taking a stream of audio and understanding individual sounds and being able to alert on that. Or for someone who can't speak, we've got custom neural voices. So people are working on banking your voice while you are still able to speak. And, you know, for people with neurodiversity, then there are ways to transform information into a way that is inclusive for you. And the list goes on and on and on. But it's this idea that, okay, we can use AI to figure out how are we going to present this information that is inclusive of everyone and our individual needs.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And you really rattled through there a whole set of AI technologies that have really come on leaps and bounds as well in the last few years. Computer vision, translation, text to speech, the neural voice stuff. Oh, I mean, it's phenomenal in some sense, isn't it? What we can do with some of these technologies. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Cnai project? You touched on it a little bit there. Can you give us a sort of overview for those that don't know about it, and actually maybe where they can go and find it?
Totally, always happy to plug. So it's called Seeing AI, and you can get that from the App Store, or so go to seeingai.com. But this is a talking camera app. So for someone who's blind, you can just point your phone at something, select the channel, which lets you know what task you're interested in, and it will read things to you, recognize the people around you, and describe objects, and so much more. Let you relive your memories in your photo gallery, or even recognize photos from other apps. And yeah, it's a really popular app amongst people who are blind. But we're always looking at what are it's like a conversation with the blind community. How do we understand the needs, find the latest technology from our scientists at Microsoft, and bring those 2 things together? So some of the recent work we've done was in augmented reality. So when the very latest iPhones had LiDAR scanners, we realized that now you can actually not only use computer vision to recognize what's in front of you, but know how far away it is and build up this 3D model of the world that persists over time. And we can use spatial audio to hear where things are in the 3D space. So you'll hear the word chair coming from the chair, or you could place a persistent audio beacon on the door. So it's like a virtual sound that comes from the door, and as you move around, you can hear that sound in 3D space. So these are just some of the cool new experiments my team's working on. And yeah, there's so much more, but go and check it out.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. Love the idea, yeah, of the AR kind of space, and the chair, like telling you it's a chair is genius. Interestingly, I think the first time I tried on a HoloLens, I tried like the space experience, is it? And the directed sound that they had is really, really interesting, because like you could like lean one way towards the sun or something like that, and you could like hear it crackling because it's obviously so hot, and I was just mind blown in some senses. So really impressive to see what we can do, not just with AI as a a cutting edge technology, also with AR, with augmented reality, and stuff like that. So yeah, really, really exciting stuff. Oh, we'll have to catch up with you every year and see what your team is doing, so that we're the most up to date. But yeah, go to cnai.com to find that, or go to the App Store. Sakib, before I let you go, we've got another couple of quick questions for you. I'm a big AI fan, but sometimes we know that AI doesn't always help. And so I wanted to ask you a very sort of blunt question, if I can. Has AI helped with accessibility in recent years?
Absolutely. There is no doubt that it's really revolutionized what is possible. But it's always worth understanding that AI is just a tool. So are the image descriptions that AI can generate, are they 100% accurate all the time? No way. And, sometimes I'm frustrated how slow the progress is, even though it's incredibly fast. And so sometimes people seeing AI and they're like, wow, you can just get an accurate description of everything anytime. And that is the vision, that's the goal. But it's worth knowing these are tools. And I think of this as we should make AI tools which help humans make better decisions. Because at the end of the day, let's keep people in the driving seat. And as the tools get better, you'll get better awareness, better knowledge. But yeah, humans first.
Oh, it's such a good point. And actually, interestingly, me and Henk always talk a lot in our show about the end-to-end of AI is so important. And as you said, like, how is it helping to solve a problem, make things easier, make things more efficient, is the center of everything that we do almost in technology, isn't it? How do we make things better? So I really enjoy that perspective that you shared there, kind of focus not just on the tool, not just what the tool delivers, but also what's the experience for the person who's using it and what decisions can they make from it. That's really, really good stuff. Wonderful. Well, to wrap up, unfortunately, we only have a short amount of time with you. As I said, we'll have to have you back. We'll have to have a catch up in the near future again. For all those AI experts, engineers, enthusiasts that are watching us here at the Global AI Keynote, what's the one thing you would suggest they do next to either learn more about this space or take action?
I would say solve meaningful problems. So find a problem you're passionate about. But then, this is the important part, find someone facing that problem, whether it's someone with a disability or someone who is, I know, accountant, lawyer, doctor, whatever your field is. Find someone who needs your tool and then work with them really closely to see how does AI work for them? How do the solutions empower them to do more? So I always say that when someone with a problem and someone with the ability to create come together, that's when you get magical solutions at the other end. So go do your stuff, and I can't wait to see what you put into the world.
Wow, what a wonderful way to end this this keynote for the Global AI community. Sakib, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us and spending some time chatting to us about your insights, your perspectives, and your expertise in this space. We really, really appreciate it. And so with that, I'll hand it back to the amazing Global AI community organisers.
Thank you so much, Amy and Sakib, for this great interview about AI and accessibility. Accessibility is not just something small that we can push to the end of our backlog. Now let us investigate how we can help everyone by making intelligent AI applications.
Today, you can look forward to a great schedule that has been set up by your local community. So with no further ado, we again want to welcome you to the Global AI Bootcamp 2022. We hope you enjoy this day, learn lots of new things, and connect with each other. And of course, we hope to see you again at our next Global AI event as well. Enjoy the event.
So that was an absolutely great introduction to today, I think, and something definitely to keep in mind, accessibility. And with that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Akansha Malik. I'm a Microsoft AI MVP here in Melbourne. I am of Indian descent, and I'm currently wearing a grey top with the Altus logo. And that's what I look like today. So for anyone joining in, let's make an effort to be really accessible today. We're not going to take too much time here in the midway. We're going to jump straight into our content. We've got a fabulous lineup of multiple different talks, all under 20 minutes, ranging from all areas of AI and ML today. And our first speaker is Arafat Tessin, who I'm going to add into the stream now. And he's going to be talking about bots. So take it away, Arafat. I will leave you to your time and we'll catch back up in about 20 minutes. See how you all go.
Absolutely. Thank you, Akansha, for the wonderful intro, and I'll take it up from here. So I'll share my screen, and one thing I noticed that you should be very careful when you're sharing stuff, especially the screen. So I will bring in. Yes. So I've got very limited time, and I'll try to be as quickly as I can. If you got questions, if you get any questions in between, feel free to drop them, and I'll answer them as we go. In addition to this, I have got a bunch of stickers, so feel free to grab them when my talk is over, and I'll ask some interesting questions. But these stickers are absolutely for free, so it's just meant to be giving away, not for any questions or something. Anyway, so let's get started. We'll talk about how to build a Chatterbox, what Chatterbox is, and how did I come up with this name. I'll talk about that, and Bot Framework Composer. So I won't be discussing the very basic part of parts of Bot Framework Composer. I've got hours long talks on NDC Sydney, which is over there on YouTube, also from the global AI community. So there are 2 hours of sessions for particularly Bot Framework Composer. So what we will discuss today is just a very small part, the new feature of this, which is called components. A little bit of introduction about myself. So I'm Arafat Tessin. I am joining you from Sydney, Australia. I'm working with EY, and I do a lot of other stuff, ranging from running a user group, Azure Sydney user group, managing one of the Bot Framework repositories, which is an independent repository, open source. You are most welcome to contribute to that, and also running Global AI podcast with many of other MVPs and community members who we are inviting as guests. So if you are interested in sharing your stories to the Global AI community, please feel free to connect with me, Akansha, Somi, or JK. Now moving forward, so as I said that I have got 20 minutes, so I'll cover up the slide parts, I think in 5 to 7 minutes. So if I go very fast, please ignore me and ask questions if you did not understand anything. But I'll be focusing more on the demo part. So we'll talk about the projection of AI, its importance, some use cases, and then we'll directly go into the component model of Bot Framework, and then OpenAI and how you can learn or get an access to the OpenAI. So bots are the new apps, as said by Satya. So it's not just a buzzword anymore. It used to be, but people are investing a lot of their businesses are investing a lot of their money into this, and they have been creating some fantastic bots with some very poor bots as well. But let's not blame the technology. Let's blame the design of it. So the projection of AI, as you see that there has been a lot of improvements in when it comes to the applications of AI. And when we see retail booming today, what it will do when it hits 2030, and the rate of automation will automatically increase, and it will balance somehow by 2025 between human and machine. So the rate of automation will increase from 33% to 47%. This is the overview of Microsoft conversational AI spectrum, from enterprise solutions to the single-handedly creation of a bot. You can have everything within one cloud, and with the power of cognitive services, you can also embed some AI capabilities to that as well. So if you are from Go, Java, Python, or Node, or apart from the .NET stack, you can still create the same fantastic experiences. And if you are not a developer and you want to create bots, so this is what I'm going to show today, that you can create bot even without writing a single line of code, but with the just low code capabilities. So using Bot Framework Composer. Now, what is Bot Framework Composer? It is a visual authoring canvas. It allows you to build bots by just dragging a drop of controls, writing very low level of code, and you don't have to have a programming background to learn all these things. And as I said, that I've covered a very detailed topic around this, so you can go and on YouTube and write deep dive Bot Framework Composer or something like that, and you'll find my videos over there. But I'll share them at the end of this session as well. So what is Bot Framework Component Model? So this is what I wanted to discuss first. So we usually used to have bots where we are incorporating greeting dialogues, goodbye dialogues, onboarding dialogues. So let's say you are a HR, you have got a company, and HR bot is greeting people, sorting out all the onboarding mechanisms, surveys, and everything else. But you also have some bootcamp bot, or a temporary bootcamp bot, where you want to utilize these dialogues. But earlier you could not do this because there was no capability of reusability over there. Like, you could not expose them as a package and import it somewhere else. So this has been released, I think, last year. It was in preview, but now it has become GA. So now you can use these packages easily from one bot to another, and I'll show you how you can do this. So this is a basic life cycle. It is exposed as an npm package or NuGet package. So similarly, like as you would do in your .NET or Node.js the solutions, you will do the same. And the Bot Framework Composer has got an engine built in that will take care of the consumption part of it. So now these are the packages which you can use within Bot Framework Composer today. They are already there. Some of them are first-party packages which are provided by Microsoft. Most of them are provided by community as well. And you can also build your local package and expose it in Bot Framework Composer. So now let's talk about the demo part, and then we'll see the OpenAI because of the time limitation. Now, as I said, Bot Framework Composer, it's an open source tool, and it is also for free. So you can just Google it and you will find Bot Framework Composer documentation and everything around it. Specifically, create and share package, which I'm going to discuss today, is also covered over here and as a part of documentation. So you can get it. Now, let's create a bot first, and we'll create a sentiment bot. So we'll get the sentiment, you can say sentiment analysis bot. So, and over here, once it is created, then I'll show you how you can add those packages. But meanwhile, since it is creating and it will take some time, and it downloads the package from the internet. So okay, it has come. So let's discuss this first. So what we are going to discuss today is we are going to see how you can consume a package. So if I run this bot, it will not be having anything else, right? But our goal is to consume an existing package from NuGet library, and which can record your sentiment of whatever the words are, whatever the sentences or utterances are coming to your way, and you can show that or record it somewhere for your later use. So if I write right now, I want to provide a feedback, nothing will happen because it will go into the unknown intent where it is saying that I did not get it. So now I want to build some capability to get to for bot to understand the word feedback. So I'm using regular expression as my engine to identify the intent, but you can use Lewis or any smart NLU or NLP capabilities. But I will just write feedback. So any sentence that has got a feedback in it will be triggered, and then I will create a dialogue very quickly. So this is my sentiment dialogue. And in this dialogue, I'm going to ask user that what is your feedback about? So I'm just asking very basic stuff. What is your feedback? I'm going to store this in one of the variables. And then what I'm going to show you is we can also send this or show you the recorded processed utterance. So your sentiment for now, I need to write something. I need to incorporate a package in order to use this turn.sentiment, because right now if I run this like this, it won't work and it won't give me any response just because I've not consumed any package. So if I say I want to provide a feedback, and it will ask me what is your feedback. Oh, so it will say your feedback for I love this event is nothing, because there is nothing. Now let's go back to the package manager, and I'll show you that there are so many packages already over here which you can use. Like you can use Twilio adapter, and you can expose your bot to Twilio, Slack, Facebook, and others as well. Same goes for all of the bunch of stuff. You can expose your bot as a Google Assistant. So these are a couple of bots which are packages which are installed. Now I will go to my local package because I already built this and it's in my local machine. So I'll try to install it. And once it is installed, then I just have to copy a configuration. And in that configuration, I'll define that you have to use this. So I will go over here, and in my bot file, I will do this. So this is a schema which you need to incorporate. It will not be done automatically right now. It is being improved. So later on, it can be done. Where do you get this information from? So I'll tell you, but let's run it, and then I'll tell you that where you can get this information from, that how, what schema to include and whatnot. So now if we are going to run it, and I will say, I want to provide a feedback. What it is doing is your sentiment for I love AI Bootcamp is true. It means that it is positive, and it is offline. It is not going to cloud, and it is using sentiment analyzer. So where do you find all of this information is from is on the bot builder community, because this is a bot builder community package. So we are responsible for this documentation, but whenever you are using somebody else's package, they should have written everything. So this is what we have written over here, and you can go and follow it. So I'll include this link as well. And behind the scenes, it is using sentiment analyzer, which is this. I created this package using ml.net, so I'm using the same package over here. Now going back very quickly to the OpenAI part, and I'll talk about what is OpenAI. So OpenAI, whoever gives me the answer of OpenAI, what is OpenAI, is going to win a swag pack of stickers. So Google is allowed, you can do it, but give me the correct answer. So what OpenAI does is it has got a model called GPT-3, generative predictive trait transformer, and what it does is it is a language model which take text in and which spits the text out, and it has been fabulous with their use cases. So you can see that it has got fantastic amount of use cases. You can start talking with this and generate the text however you want. And it can go quite nasty or quite bad as well, quite racist as well at times. So you have to be very careful. The last line, AI writer and Guardian's articles, and a few examples. So you can have a look at it, that how AI was used to create a full article of Guardian, or what AI writer does. But more importantly, how do you get an access to this? So right now it is publicly available. When I got an access, it was not publicly available, so I had to go through so many routes in order to convince them that I really need it. But since you can go and get it, so they have got some very small amount of charging fee, which you can use to build all of this. Now, before I get into this, I'll share 1 minute of my story. Is so when I got this access, I've got I work with conversational AI a lot as my passion, as some professional stuff. So I have got Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant at my home, and my daughter plays a lot with it. So when my daughter used to ask very basic questions, like she's 4 year old, so she used to ask very basic questions like what is the opposite of black, and things like that. So Google Assistant used to go somewhere else by responding that, oh, according to Wikipedia and blah blah blah. So it was not giving her correct response, like what is the capital of China, let's say. So um, I heard this once, and I thought that since I've gotten access to OpenAI's GPT-3 model, let's do something, and let's create something for her. So I sat together over here, and I analyzed that how can I build this using Bot Framework Composer, exposes to Google Assistant. And then I used Bot Framework Composer, built it, and I created a bot, something called Chatterbox. So I'll play a video, and I hope that my sound is also being shared. So just have a look at it, and I'll show you that how I built it.
What's the opposite of black?
Sure. Here's some helpful information I found on the web.
What's the top color of the rainbow?
On the website quickoquiz.com, they say, it is true.
Okay, Google, talk to Chatterbox.
Okay, getting the test version of Chatterbox. I am a highly intelligent question answering bot. If you ask me a question that is rooted in truth, I will give you the answer.
What's the top color of the rainbow?
Red.
The opposite of black.
White.
How does a binocular work?
Binoculars work by using a combination of lenses and mirrors to magnify the image that you see.
What's the capital of Australia?
Canberra.
So this is what it was, Chatterbox, and now I have already. So as I said that I used Bot Framework Composer packages of Google this time. So this is my Chatterbox bot, and I'm using Actions SDK project component, and this is how you see it. This is the simplest bot, and if I run it, so you will see that over here you can ask the similar kind of questions over here from the same bot. So and it will start giving me the similar kind of answers as it would give me on my Google Assistant. On the Google Assistant side, this is my action. So that it is 100% connected with the Bot Framework Composer over here through the Action Manager. This is a tedious process. So if I had time, I would have shown you. And last minute, so I will just show you that how the playground of OpenAI works. You can easily go get an access now, and you can start playing with it, doing question and answer or chat. So if I go and chat that, and it can go talking to you for like hours and you won't. So it can go till whatever time you want. And so this is the overview of what you can achieve with Bot Framework, Composer, OpenAI, and Google Assistant, or you can expose this bot to Amazon Alexa as well. I am absolutely open to questions, and I'm sure that I'm at time. Then I will take some questions, and also these are some of the resources. I'll post it on the chat window as well, and this is shared on my GitHub repo. So the slide deck is absolutely shared on my GitHub repo. So this is my GitHub repo. You can come over here, Cognitive Rocket, and you can see that the slide deck has been added. So that is it from my side. I will give this floor to Akansha.
I think that was a fabulous introduction to it all. And I'm sure if there's questions, Arafat's going to be around over the next little bit and he'll be able to answer them throughout the conversation. With that, Arafat, we'll say goodbye to you for now. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again throughout the day. Yes. But we're going to bring on our next guest speaker, who is Phoebe. And I'm very excited because she's also from Altus, but it's also one of her first presentations in the community. So I'm really looking forward to what she has to share, especially because it is for Data for Good. I will leave Phoebe to do a lot of the introductions because she will be talking about it, but this is kind of one of those things where we're actually leveraging data and machine learning to do some good out in the world. So Phoebe, I will hand it all over to you and take it away.
Thank you so much. All right, let me just share my screen. Okay, so today I'll be talking about saving the Tassie Devils using machine learning for good. First up, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the lands of the Wurundjeri people who have been custodians of this land for thousands of years, and acknowledge and pay my respects to their elders past and present. So a little bit about me. I work at Altus as a senior consultant. I'm doing a lot of data engineering. I did a Bachelor of Science in Maths and Computer Science. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter. So the Tasmanian Nature Company is a specialist nature tour operation, and they run conservation tours on the Tasman Peninsula. They have a groundbreaking wildlife centre, the UNZOO. So an UNZOO is a reversal of a traditional zoo. There's no enclosures, and it invites visitors into animals' natural habitats. Cages or barriers are removed or concealed, and wild animals are encouraged to interact with the environment. This gives animals more freedom, dignity, and self-determination, and humans get more personal and memorable experiences. In 2007, John Coe, a legendary zoo designer, came up with an UNZOO master plan for the Hamilton family farm. This was the perfect area as it's almost an island. It's separated from the rest of Tasmania by a canal, leaving only a narrow piece of land. This naturally formed barrier has been enhanced by the UNZOO to protect their wild devil population. The UNZOO also has possums, wallabies, bandicoots, wombats, almost 100 species of birds, and, more importantly, the last wild, disease-free devil population. So the devil facial tumor disease first emerged in 1996, and there is no cure. It's the only fatal transmissible cancer in the world. It affects devils' ability to hunt and eat, leading to starvation. It's decimated devil populations across Tasmania. Due to the isolation of the Tasman Peninsula, the disease has not reached there yet. It's the last safe haven. Once the disease gets into a population of devils, it decimates them. It's spread through playing and fighting, which are normal devil behaviours. If the disease gets into the UNZOO, it'll only be a matter of time before Tasmanian devils are extinct. To keep devils safe, the Tasmanian Nature Company have set up the Devil Tracker project. It monitors wild devils on a daily basis using infrared night cameras around the UNZOO. The camera takes a photo when it detects movement, such as an animal walking past at night. Various animals appear in these photos. There are 3 traps set up with food daily. So each day, an UNZO employee must manually go through each photo, find the photos of devils, check there's no devil facial tumor disease, and then save the ones they want to keep. This is extremely time-consuming and difficult work, and very easy to get boring. So far, they've got over 60,000 images saved. This is invaluable data, but they've got no easy way to use it. Luckily, they've not found any diseased devils yet. So this is where Data for Good comes in. It's a not-for-profit that encourages data professionals to use their data skills for purpose, not profit. It strives to make data solutions universally accessible for businesses who are focused on solving community and global issues. If you're interested in helping out, you can contact me or go to the Data for Good website. We're always looking for projects and volunteers. There's also a mailing list if you want to be kept in the loop about upcoming projects, or you can get your name, skill set taken down and they can reach out if they've got a project that may fit. It's a really great way to learn and meet new people and try new things. So working with the Tasmanian Nature Company, the project team narrowed it down to 3 key questions that our solution should answer. Those are, is there a Tasmanian devil in the photo? This would reduce time spent sorting through photos. Are there any signs of facial tumours or injuries? This would turn it into a fully automated process requiring basically no time from employees. And how often are individuals passing through the same spots? This would give the UNZO really valuable insights into their devil population. So our journey begins. We began by just manually sorting and labeling the photos. We used Label Image on Python, which is a graphical image annotation tool, and just manually drew bounding boxes around the objects in the image. We labeled around 1,500 images of devils like this. So we trained and tested the model, and then the model thought everything was a devil because our data set was almost entirely devils with a couple of cats in there. So it assumed it was a devil because that's all it knew. So we added a non-devil class, but there was still a really uneven amount of photos, so the model still thought everything was a devil. So we added even more photos of non-devils. So here are some photos of the other animals that pass through the camera traps. We've got wombats, birds, spotted quolls, wallabies, bandicoots. We labelled all of these as not devil, as we didn't have enough images or the need to train the model to recognize every single animal that passes through the trap. So the photos of the other animals had a different background to the original photos of the devils that we had labelled, so the model learnt to recognize the difference by just looking at the backgrounds. We discovered a tool on the Microsoft GitHub called Mega Detector. It turns out that a lot of people have the same issue that the Tasmanian Nature Company has. A huge portion of time is being spent reviewing images that they just aren't interested in. So Mega Detector was built to allow conservation biologists to spend their time on the images that matter. Mega Detector detects the presence of animals, people, and vehicles in camera trap images. So it will find the animal in the image, but it doesn't identify them. We used the Mega Detector animal detection model to create a bounding box around a detected animal, then added 10 border pixels and a 35 pixel buffer on the top and bottom to avoid the camera overlays. We then cropped the images when the detection was over 90%. If there were multiple animals in one photo detected at a high confidence, then multiple images were extracted. We resized the images to a 256 by 256 pixel box. You can see that the cropped and resized image just looks like a chunkier devil. You can still tell it's a Tasmanian devil. Then for our dataset, we stratified it by date. So the test devil dataset has images from February, March, April, and June of 2020, and the training had everything else. This is so we don't have to deal with the issue of related images appearing in both the training and test sets. The cameras trigger a sequence, so there's often multiple very similar images clustered together, which would have played havoc with the model if it was split across the training and test datasets. Unfortunately, this wasn't possible to do automatically with the non-devil dataset, so we had to do a manual stratification, so there were samples of all animal species in both the train and test datasets, but very few occurrences of there being samples from a single sequence of images in both datasets. For our testing and training datasets, we used a 70 to 30 ratio for devil images and 60 to 40 for non-devil images. We then created another data set that had an equal number of devil and non-devil images. We used Amazon Recognition custom labels to label each image based on a folder structure in an S3 bucket. Then we trained the model using those data sets. So in total, we had around 6,000 devil images and 240 non-devil images. So we ran the model again, and it worked. So the model could detect the presence of Tassie devils in an image with a high confidence rate. This means that the empty images and non-devil images could be separated automatically. An automated system could do this for hundreds of thousands of images per day. As you can see, the model could recognize the backs of devils. It only made 41 errors out of the 2006 images that it was tested on, and all of those were legitimately difficult, such as like blurry images that even humans would have to squint to check whether it was a devil or not. So that made us pretty confident that it wasn't cheating. You can see that the percentages there, the back of the devil, it's like 93% and 99%, and yeah, 99% and then 93 again. So our next steps. We've solved the first question by creating that model, so we can now tell that if there is a Tasmanian devil in the photo. So our next step is going to be more difficult, as there are no photos of devils with tumors from these particular camera traps. That means that we're going to probably have the same background issue that we had last time. So we're going to need to figure out a way to get around that again. Thank you so much for listening. Are there any questions or anything?
So we did have a question about the distribution of classes compared to devil class, which I think you just answered, but if you want to go back over that just in case.
Yeah, sure. So, my notes up. So it was, we ended up making it 50-50 in our final data set to train on, but our initial was a lot more skewed towards devil images. Does that answer the question?
I think so. I think you mentioned in terms of like there's 200 and the 6,000, like I think it covered it pretty well.
6,000 devil in total and 240 non-devil.
So yeah, there was, I think you tried different variations of that as well, didn't you, in terms of
We did, yeah, we tried. It took us to the final run to realize that we needed equal in each. Otherwise, it would just take anything that looked vaguely similar and assume it was a devil.
Phoebe, I'm so thankful for you to have come along and actually shared all this information. Maybe you want to just touch on a little bit of Data for Good, like the other work that they do, because I think it's absolutely fabulous what they're doing out there. And there's about 15, 20 people listening, and I'm sure they've got the skills that they can come lend to Data for Good overall.
Yeah, so Data for Good has heaps of projects going on at the moment, and lots are just across the whole data spectrum, so not just data science. I know we're working on some data retention policies as well. So really, across the whole spectrum, we're working with Baptist Care, which is serving the aged people and people living with a disadvantage. The Aboriginal Legal Service in New South Wales and Canberra, we've been improving data quality and reporting for them. Working with Fred Hallows Foundation. Just a whole range of projects, and always looking for more. So if you know any not-for-profits, then please get in touch.
Yeah, if you have a problem that you've seen, for sure, reach out. There's people willing to kind of get in touch with you and chat through exactly what it is and see if we can help. So look, with that, we'll wrap up Phoebe's presentation for today. As always, she'll be around for a little bit. Throw your questions into the comments if you need to. But let's dive into the next bit. Phoebe will be back again in a little bit as well, don't worry. But for the next little bit, we're going to be doing an introduction to some new speakers in the community, of which Phoebe is one. So let me introduce you to Arafat and Somi. So you've already met Arafat. Somi is another one of the people who hosts the Global AI podcast. So this is just a quick conversation. It's a little bit of a break if you want to grab some coffee, tea while you listen in to how people got involved in the community and get involved with other things around Australia and AI in general. So look, I'll hand it over to the folks and they can take it away from here.
All right, thanks, Akansha, and fabulous talk by Phoebe. I was quite interested in learning that how they were managing from step by step, going from the too erroneous state to the accurate state. So let's bring on Phoebe and Lena, and then ask about them. So especially me, I'm not sure about Somi, but I think for Somi as well, we are seeing you for the first time. So it's really good to see how efficiently and how well you performed in terms of identifying a problem and then solving it to the end. And I know that there has been a lot of problem in between, and you are still discussing that you don't know how to detect whether this particular devil has got that disease or not. You still have to find out. But so before we get into that technical stuff, for our audience, we would like to just give you an introduction that me, Akansha, Somi, and JK hiding behind the stream, are running Global AI, the podcast. We normally invite people who are working around AI and how they are working, what they are working on, and if they would like to share their experiences with the community, with the broader audience. So if you are listening to this and if you really want to share your story, please join us or contact me, or Somi, Akansha, or JK, and we'll definitely invite you. We would love to hear your story, and we would definitely cascade or broadcast this information across the globe through our channels. So let's welcome Lena and Phoebe. Phoebe, I would like to start with you because since you have already you were giving a session, so if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, like how did you get started with AI? What was the motivation behind it?
So I've always been interested in data science, but in my job, I was mainly working in data engineering. And then, I saw this Data for Good project come up and they were looking at using machine learning. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to give AI a go. So I got involved with it. And that's really it.
Cool. And what about you, Lena? If you can give a little bit detailed introduction, because I know that you have not come to the screen yet. So
Yep. Hi everyone. So my name is Lena. So I did my undergrad in engineering and computer science. And from computer science, I had to take an AI course and I fell in love with it. So I was really interested in it. And I also did an honors thesis project for my studies. So from that point on, I kind of decided I would like to go deeper into detail on AI. So so at the end of my degree, I chose to pursue a PhD in AI and robotics. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. I would like to say hi first. Thanks for joining us. I'm super glad to see another female speakers in the stream. So welcome and keep it up. One question you mentioned, Lena, that you were a student. So if I'm a uni student and don't have enough knowledge regarding to AI and ML, but I'm part of the technical industry, right? I'm a programmer, I'm a developer. What do you think would be the good step for me to get into or skill up and get into AI and ML? You mentioned that you took 2 courses, but what if I didn't have that option? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because although I had the opportunity to take an AI course, but I feel like a lot of the courses in university, they don't give you that much exposure to AI or machine learning. So I feel like a lot of the resources that you can get are usually probably on the internet. I think that's the easiest way to learn. I think including for students who may have taken an AI course, but I think you'll get more exposure if you pursue it yourself in your own time.
And how do you rate it? What is the learning curve like if someone who you think that is not equipped with that knowledge which you have, or someone who would study ML or AI as a part of their course? Let's suppose I'm someone who does not have any knowledge on this vertical, but I really want to get into this. So what is the learning curve from your perspective? And then the same question will fall on to Phoebe, to you as well. So first, if you can talk about it, Lena.
Yeah, I feel like with the learning curve, it's kind of complicated, right? It just depends on the individual, like how much time can you invest into it? Because I feel like even if you're a student, but maybe the courses you've taken, they might not prepare you that well for AI or machine learning. So it just really depends. Yeah, it's a pretty hard question to answer, but that's a good question.
Yeah, and from the lens of professional industry, Phoebe, how would you answer this? Do you think that it is taking a lot of your time as a learning time in order to implement some new problems, or it just takes let's say a few months in start or few weeks in start, and then when you get onto this, you really don't have to invest a lot of your time in learning rather than doing?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good tutorials out there as well, which take you through step by step, especially like Python tutorials. Once you kind of know how to code a little bit, then it's fairly easy to pick up new languages. So like I'd done a bit of R, so it was really, really quick and easy for me to pick up Python. Yeah, I think, it also depends on like how much previous coding experience you have.
But that brings me to ask another question. What do you think, what is the top 3 things that is required to be in a position that like yourself in the industry? If you want to list down 3 things that anybody requires to maybe start off with, what do you think that would be?
I think definitely Python or R experience in one would be great. Then just a willingness to learn and give things a go. Not be worried about making mistakes. And then I'm not sure about a third one, just those 2 really.
No, that is good. It's just not to be afraid to explore new stuff. That is good. I'm with you on that one. What do you reckon, Lena?
Okay, so for me, I think Phoebe's kind of covered the other 2 important parts, but I think another thing that might not be what everyone thinks of is probably the maths. So it's like you kind of, you want to understand the maths, and earlier in your career or in your education, you might have just brushed maths off, but then actually you kind of need it for AI and machine learning if you want to like truly understand it. So yeah.
That's a good
But
point.
then there comes another notion in industry, specifically, Lena, that there are tools around AI and machine learning, creation of those tools, creation of those models, in fact, which you can do this without getting your hands dirty with Python or any other complex stuff. Do you think that they go so far, or they are just limited to stuff? You cannot achieve what you really want. You can go a little far with that. Do you think about it?
Yep. So from what I've seen, there are so many solutions that are like no code or low code, where you don't really have to know any coding, right? It's just pretty easy, like, click tools. Yeah. So I've seen some really useful tools, and I think people are always trying to improve these features. So it's just going to keep being more accessible to people who may not know how to code, may not understand like the more detailed parts of machine learning and AI. But so we're lowering the barrier to entry, so which I think is good.
And
I'm glad that you mentioned low code, no code solution, because I'm keen to understand and see where it touches. And there, as you mentioned, there are lots of tools available that doesn't require a lot of coding and knowledge behind. So it's more of a drag and drop features that we can use, and it does the job for you. Yes, for sure, you need to know a background of it. You need to know the math. You need to know how to train the model, how to cleanse the data and everything. But there are tools available. And from what I've seen, they've been keep adding it. So they try to improve and they try to make it easier for everybody to jump in without having a lot of background knowledge. Right on point.
Yeah, but let's discuss this from Phoebe as well, because she's the one who's actually doing it in the industry, right? So let's hear her point of view on this. And have you used anything of low code or no code stuff that has helped your problem, regardless of the technology?
Yeah, definitely. What we did for the Tassie Devil project, we tried a really wide range of different image recognition tools, and Amazon recognition ended up being the best, and that is fairly light on with the coding. So yeah, there's definitely uses for them. I think it is good to understand the maths and kind of know what's happening in the black box, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, and would you like to mention the name of that tool, so our audience can hear it and they can explore if they want?
Yeah, Amazon recognition. So it's recognition, but with a K instead of a C.
K, yeah. All right. This is cool. So now another question to both of your ways, Lena and Phoebe. How do you plan your work when you get something as a problem? Starting with you, Phoebe. When you are getting a problem in front of you, that okay, we need to find out. Let's take a devil's example, but with let's replace devils with koala, and koala has got some disease or something like that. How do we go from here and uh, solve a problem like solving this disease problem, but I don't have enough data? So how do I get to that? Do I always have to go to Kaggle to look for the data, or there are some other sources as well which are local sources? So that's why I mentioned specifically koala, because it is not everywhere across the globe.
Yeah, so we actually, for the facial tumor issue, we've had to go to other places around Tasmania and ask them, do you have photos of devils with the tumors? Because we currently don't have any in our data set. So yeah, you definitely just find places that may have that and then contact them and ask them for the data.
Makes sense. And if you have to do it, Lena, for your academics or any research purpose, where do you get the data from?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So it depends what the project is. So the project might actually require you to obtain the data yourself, or maybe you're using someone else's data. But obviously, if you can't find it, then perhaps it might be your job to, obtain the data yourself and perform experiments. So yeah, there's many different ways.
Yeah, I think we have got some questions, Somi, in the comment section for Phoebe and Lena, if you can.
Let me look it up. So there's a question: do you not think that if it's made too easy, then people using it won't know what the issue and trap are there, and it might cause additional problem in the result?
I think Breeze, if I pronounce your name right, they are talking about the low code or no code tools, if I'm not wrong.
I guess that was when we had that discussion. Seems that way. Yeah, that's an order of the comments. Yeah, if we don't understand the tools, we may end up using it in the wrong way, and that will impact and cause the model that the result that we are getting may be incorrect. So if it's too easy, is there a risk?
I think, yes, there is a risk, but then accessibility is always good as well. So yeah, and then people can then investigate like what the issues are and learn new things if their models aren't looking correct.
And what about you, Lena?
Yeah, sorry. I don't think that that's the problem. I don't think the issue is that it's too easy for people to use, but more like if we have an issue that people don't understand what the problems are with their models and results, maybe the way to fix it is to provide a way to tell Nova's users how to debug the problem, how to solve the problem. Maybe we could work on a way to teach a Nova's user what they must do to solve their problems. So I don't think the issue is the fact that it's made too easy for everyone to be able to access machine learning and AI.
All right. So then this brings me to another point of explainability. So do we have any tools, or are you guys using any tools which are using for model explainability? So if you are, please tell us. Okay, I think you're not. That's absolutely fine. So another question comes when we were discussing about whether should we use it or we don't know what is inside. And this brings me to a topic of responsible AI or responsible ML. And there has been a lot of discussions around it, that the data which you are using, is it not biased or is it biased? And it is going to bring up some of the results which people may not expect, and things like that. So how do you tackle in your day-to-day research, Lena, when these things comes up? Like if you are building or something, doing a research on something, and you are proposing an outcome of that research, how do you think that it is good enough to take care of this in the start, or not take care of this at all? Or how do you scale, how do you think about it?
Yeah, that's a good question, because sometimes when you think this may solve the problem, but perhaps it doesn't, or perhaps there's an even better way to solve it. So I think that's the exciting part of research, because there's always new stuff coming out. Like, yes, sure, there's maybe you can solve the problem using this method, but maybe there's an even better way that's like, doesn't use up as much, like the resources, it's not as costly, or perhaps the way you solve it, it's not optimal. So yeah, that's a good question. That's kind of the exciting part of research.
And what about you, Phoebe? When it comes to the responsible ML or AI, do you guys take care of the data, or that whatever we are using is making sense?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is really just with this Tassie Devil project. But yeah, we've tried to. We had the very biased data set at the start, and we realized we had to even it out a bit. Otherwise, we got the model was like completely wrong. So yeah, I definitely think evening out data sets at the start to accurately represent like what's happening in the real world is important.
That is all interesting. I've got one maybe non-technical related question. Any thought of joining communities where everybody can, or especially newcomers or students, can feel safe and maybe empowered?
Yeah, I feel like this community is a good one. It's safe. It's known to be very friendly to newcomers, and obviously very safe. Yeah, so I think that's an important part. Joining communities so you can learn with each other, and yeah, get new insights from other people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's really nice, so welcoming. There's so much information online already as well that you can access, because the community is very active. So yeah, it's a pretty good community.
That's good to hear. Adding a COVID element to the whole thing, how do you see the difference between being in person, like we used to have meetups, but now everything is online? Do you see a lot of impact or difference, or I guess the online might have like covered it enough? What is your take on that one?
For me, for sure. So obviously in terms of community, like it's over Zoom or over the internet now. But another thing that affects me is the fact that, for example, if I want to perform experiments like with participants, I can't do that right now. So I have to like delay my experiments, and I can only do experiments where people can would have to interact over the internet. So yeah, that's definitely the downside.
That is true. How about yourself, Vivi?
It's really nice being able to like have this as a whole Australia event as opposed to just like Melbourne where I am. So that's definitely a positive of it being online. But then it is a shame that we don't get to meet everyone in person, because that would be really nice too. Yeah, so pros and cons to both.
I'm sure.
Definitely. We do miss in-person interactions. But yeah, soon I think we will be having these kind of events starting very soon, especially in Australia, hopefully, and we will get to meet each other. So that's thank you so much, Phoebe and Lena. I know that you have got a session, Lena, after this, and Phoebe, thank you so much for coming in and joining us. Thanks all for listening to this specific section. We will be taking break for 5 minutes, or in fact 6 minutes, and we'll be back by 12 2020. So please stay with us. And once we are back, I think it's Lena who is going to be talking. Is it? Oh, yes. Cool. So thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you after the break. Bye.
Okay, everyone, I hope you had a quick minute to go get a cup of tea or some lunch or just run around, get yourself back into the mode, because our next session is starting now in a minute. And I've got Lena coming back in for her presentation on reinforcement learning, which I'm actually really excited about because I don't think it's an area of AI and machine learning that we tend to talk about quite often, especially in the community in areas like this. So it's going to be a really, really interesting one that I'm looking forward to hearing from Lena about. So Lena, look, I will let you take over the screen. I will share your screen there in a second. Enjoy your session, and I'm looking forward to hearing it all.
Thank you, Kangsha. Hi, everyone. Okay, so my screen is sharing. So my name is Lena Paget, as we met earlier just now. I'm currently doing my PhD in AI and robotics in Sydney. And in my field, we use a lot of reinforcement learning. So I thought it would be a good idea to give everyone an introduction to what reinforcement learning is. So reinforcement learning is a method in machine learning that is used in many applications, including robotics, personalized recommendations, automated stock trading, or even for playing games. So let me give you some famous examples of reinforcement learning at work. So AlphaStar here, as you can see, developed by DeepMind, is an AI that plays the video game StarCraft 2. It's so good at the game that it was even able to defeat a professional player known as Mana by 5-0. It also managed to reach Grandmaster level in the game, which is the top 0.2% of players. An example is Alphago Zero, also developed by DeepMind Technologies. So the AI plays the board game Go. It won against Lee Sedol, who was an 18-time world champion. Pretty amazing, right? Well, it doesn't stop there. Reinforcement learning has also been used by Wave to train a car to drive within 1 day from scratch. Now, okay, so we know that reinforcement learning can be pretty useful, but what is it? Reinforcement learning is the training of the AI in order for it to make a sequence of decisions. So essentially, the agent uses trial and error in order to come up with a solution. Specifically, it gets rewards or penalties for the actions that it performs. So similar to how you may train a child or a pet, or perhaps even when you train yourself. So kind of like how you may reward yourself with a chocolate after going to the gym. The goal of the agent is to maximize the amount of the total reward. So let's run it step by step first. We start with an initial environment, and at each time step, the agent takes an action. This therefore changes the environment. So for example, if you were to move this chess piece to another place, that is you changing the environment. That is, the state of the chessboard is now different. Also, due to the action, the agent receives the corresponding reward for performing that action. This whole process repeats until we finally reach our goal, for example, until we win the game. Okay, now that we are kind of aware of how it works, let's apply it to a problem. Let's look at the infamous example, the cart pole problem. So we have a cart, which is this black rectangle, and we have a pole that's attached to it by the purple joint. So the agent can either push the cart to the left or to the right. We get a reward of +1 for every time step that the pole does not fall over. And the game ends if the pole is too tilted or if the cart is too far off the center. Our goal is therefore to prevent the pole from falling over. Okay, so let's solve this problem using reinforcement learning. We'll first take a look at this overall code that solves this problem. So just like what we talked about just now, the solution to this problem involves going through the typical steps for reinforcement learning. So we start with an initial environment, and then at each time step, the agent performs an action. This changes the environment, and the agent receives the corresponding reward for it, and we keep repeating the process. Okay, now let's look at it in more detail. So the first step is that we create our environment. Here we use OpenAI Gym, as can be seen in line 2. Lines 3 and 4 get the observation space and the action space, respectively. We'll find out more about them in the next few slides. Lastly, we create our agent in line 5. So what is the observation space? Here, we just use the term as to mean the information about the environment. In our scenario, information about the following is pretty important in order to learn to balance the cart pole. So the first thing is the cart pole position. So it's the horizontal position of the cart. So if it's right in the center, then its position is 0. If it's, for example, to the far left, its position may be minus 4.8, or if its position is to the far right, it may be 4.8, and so on. The next thing is cart velocity. So this is just the velocity of the cart. The magnitude is higher if it's moving faster. The next one is pole angle. So this is just the angle from the upright vertical line. This determines how tilted the pole is. And number 4, pole velocity at the tip. This is simply the velocity of the tip of the pole. Next, we have actions. So let's look at the action space. The agent only has 2 options in our scenario. So it can either push the cart to the left or to the right. And that's it for our action space. All right, so let's initialize the environment. So the pole starts as being upright on the cart, and the cart starts at the center position. Next, we get our agent to work out what the best action is, given the state of our environment. So this could be either to push the cart to the left or to push the cart to the right. When we're not exploring, the agent generally chooses an action which would lead to the highest Q value. So the Q value is simply a measure of how good it would be to take that action from a certain state. Now, sometimes our agent may instead explore. This means it may not always choose the action with the highest Q value. So imagine going to Newtown for the first time. You've never tried any restaurants there before. So you decide to try out this restaurant, and it turns out that the food there is actually really good. So you mentally give this restaurant 4 stars. The other restaurants in Newtown are currently at 0 stars since you've not tried them. Now, let's say you come back another day. If you were to exploit, you would be going back to that restaurant that you gave 4 stars to, since it was so good. However, if you were to explore instead, you would be trying out a different restaurant, even though you already know that that other restaurant was really good. But you want to explore because what if there is a 5-star restaurant out there that you haven't discovered yet? This is the same logic in explore versus exploit in reinforcement learning. So perhaps it is better to explore sometimes. Okay, let's say the agent has now chosen an action to take. The agent can now actually perform the action on the environment. So for example, it now performs the act of pushing the cart to the right. Now that the agent has performed the action, we can now see what the new state of the environment is and what reward the agent receives from pushing the cart to the right just now. Here, next, we record the previous state, the action that the agent just took, the reward that it just received, the new state, and whether it ended the episode. So we record all of this to our memory. And now we're going to use the past experiences from our memory to learn. So just like how sometimes us humans think back on our old memories and we reflect on them for learning, this is the same here. So here, the agent stores information to its memory. It then samples some of the experiences from its memory and use them to update the corresponding Q values. Okay, so I won't go into too much detail about the maths that can be seen at the bottom of our slide, but notice the discount factor in the equation. It's the same thing as the gamma in line 8 of our code. The discount factor simply signifies that the reward for your future actions probably don't matter as much to you right now. So imagine a scenario where you have to pick between studying for an exam or watching Netflix. Overall, studying for an exam probably has the greater overall reward in the long term. However, right now, Netflix probably seems more appealing. It gives you the instant reward of entertainment and relaxation. The discount factor does the same thing here. It makes the rewards that you will get in the future seem less appealing than the rewards that you'll be getting soon. And that's it. That's pretty much all there is. Now let's see how our system performs. So in the graph, the x-axis is the number of runs or the number of episodes. and the y-axis shows the scores of the system in each run. As we can see, the agent improves its performance with the increasing number of runs, as it should. People see the cardboard problem as being solved if over the course of 100 runs, the average score is at least 195. So here, the graph shows that we have achieved that. The orange dotted line shows the average score over the past 100 runs, and the green line indicates the score of 195. As we can see, the orange line is above the green line, so we have solved the problem. Now, the x-axis of this graph shows the number of trials, and the y-axis indicates the number of steps required before the problem could be solved using this algorithm. This algorithm solves the cardboard problem on average within 131 steps on average. So now we've seen how great reinforcement learning is, but when should we use it? Firstly, reinforcement learning can be sample inefficient. This means that it will take a long time for the reinforcement learning agent to learn which actions are good and which ones are bad, and therefore making several mistakes on the way. But can we afford to make that many mistakes? Would it be too costly to make these mistakes? Does it involve ethical or financial reasons, maybe? Also, can we even obtain enough samples? So that's a question to ask. The next is, it can also be difficult to choose what information we need to know about the state in order to ensure that the agent learns in the most optimal way. So what are the state variables and how can we quantify them? As an example, let's say we are applying reinforcement learning for stocks trading. We can decide that the state will comprise of the close price of the stock for the last 10 days, the volume operated on those days, and the difference between the minimum and maximum price of the stock those days. However, we could also decide to use instead the change of price and percentage of the stock for the last 10 days, the volume operated, and the difference between the minimum and maximum as a percentage of the close price. So which option is better? This depends on the problem we want to solve. So the second approach may seem better because it is more generalizable, but maybe the first one could perform better for a given stock since it will be able to identify the minimum and the maximum prices. And there's still many other options to take into account. So we can also use a binary variable where 0% represents a decline on the price that day and a 1 that represents a price growth that day. We could also observe the RSI, the moving average price. We could also use the sentiment of news for that stock or even the price of other stocks or commodities. There are just so many options. Next is more information about the state, even always good. So on one hand, more information available to the agent. I mean, obviously, the better decisions it will be able to make because it will have a more precise idea of what is happening. But on the other hand, the more information available to the agent means that it may take even longer for it to map states to actions because the action space, so the number of options available for you to choose to perform your action, it grows exponentially with the number of variables and the values we take into account. And the next one is that we also need to take into account whether the agent will even have access to these variables. This is very important because it is often given as granted. However, not having access to a variable on a given day may mean that our reinforcement learning agent will perform badly and even come to learn a wrong behavior with time. So another thing to think about is also whether you can define a concrete reward function. So you always know exactly how to define what the reward should be. Now, if you are able to answer all these questions, then your problem may be a good fit for reinforcement learning. Perhaps now it may be time to try out reinforcement learning yourself. So in summary, in this talk, we went over a few applications of reinforcement learning, and we looked at some well-known examples of reinforcement learning at work. We learned about the reward system and what a state transition is, so as you're moving from one state to another when you perform actions. And we learned what the cardboard problem consists of. We applied reinforcement learning to solve this problem. And last but not least, we also worked out when to use and not to use reinforcement learning. So that's it for this talk. I hope this presentation has been helpful in introducing the concept of reinforcement learning. Thank you, everyone.
That was Absolutely great. And I think, honestly, you're doing a PhD. You have to explain all these things on a constant basis. So I was assuming it would be good, but that was amazing to hear. And I think we've got a question in the comments. Let me just pop that up onto the screen. So does it depend on us to decide when to explore versus exploit?
So, yeah, so that's a really good question because, so that's usually a parameter that people will use to dictate how often should the agent explore and how often should it exploit. But yeah, so that's a good question. It's usually a parameter that you might want to set.
Okay, perfect. Lena, this is just so interesting, I think. Are you like, do you want to maybe like very quickly touch on how you're using this in your PhD? I think that'd be really, really interesting to hear because you did mention that you do this fairly often when you're studying.
Yeah, thank you. So for my PhD, I'm kind of working with, how to get, how to make it so that a novice user, so you don't need to know how to code, you don't really need that much knowledge in terms of programming or robotics, but you want to make it so that novice users can teach a robot to perform whatever task you want it to perform. So part of it is definitely like you definitely need to use reinforcement learning. That's something that you need to use. And in general robotics, we tend to use a lot of reinforcement learning. So that's my topic, and that's why I heavily use it.
And I know that this is kind of a random, but like this is a question that I've got. I think we know the biggest, from a public point of view, the biggest area that I've seen reinforcement learning being a very heavy topic. Oh yes, of course, robotics, but also kind of self-driving vehicles and stuff, right? Building out those kind of models. And we've seen how Tesla's doing, and we've seen all the other cars that are starting to come up and that they're expanding into Australia now. How far off do you think, or even just in general, like that we will be? Because I know in Australia it's kind of banned at the moment that we can't be driving a Tesla on its like robotic mode. How far do you think that is away, and like what do you see that becoming in the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's complicated.
It doesn't have to be very detailed. It can be a discussion. I don't mind. Like I'm not saying that you need to know the answers, but it's just an answer question.
Because I feel like the answer will vary from person to person, because even if the technology does get that good, but when you're driving, the self-driving car will be driving on a road, and it'll be interacting with other people as well. So it's a complex issue, because the people who are also driving, like on that road, would they be comfortable with it? There's a lot of questions to ask, because there's a lot of people involved in this thing. So it does look, from what I've seen, it seems like it's working out pretty well, but who knows how ready it is.
Yeah. And it's like so many ethics questions around it as well, right? Like if they're like if there's an accident, who is to blame? Is there someone to blame?
Yeah.
Do we blame the company? Like, do we blame Tesla for this? Like, who do we blame? It's such an interesting overall thing. And it's a case of like, well, if there's machine learning cars driving, do we let humans drive at all? Like, is it better that every single car is robotic at that stage? And then I was like, well, is that a choice? It's very interesting conversations altogether in that area, I think, that are worth having a deeper conversation about. Maybe we'll get you back onto the podcast and just talk all about cars and Teslas and everything. But look, Lena, we'll leave you go. Thank you so much for your time. We will try and get your slides shared out to the people attending if they wanted to have a closer look at them. But we'll leave you go. We'll leave you to do all the amazing things in your PhD and see where you get with the robotics, and you can come update us next time.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Okay, so you're all going to be sick of me at this stage, because the next presentation is from me. It's like, yes, let me organize an event and then let me speak at it for myself. But this has been something I've been working on, so we're going to dive into the next session, which is making podcasts accessible. Accessibility is a fairly big theme at this year's Global AI Bootcamp. If you were here for the keynote, you would have heard all about that part at the start. I think it's just such an important part of the year we're living in. It's so interesting that we're making it such a big part of our lives at this stage. So let me just share my screen. Let's get that up and running, and we can get straight into it. So how can we make podcast accessible? And I have closed my slides. That was not fun. Right, here we go. Okay, introductions. I feel like I've already done an introduction, but if you just joined into the stream, my name is Akansha. I'm a Microsoft AI MVP in Melbourne. I am a managing data consultant over at Altus Consulting, and we solve all different types of problems related to data, whether that's warehousing or reporting needs, or all the way out towards the AI ML kind of fun side of things, which is where I usually sit. So if you've got any things you want to be looking at solving, please reach out. We'll be more than happy to have a conversation. So the agenda for today, I'm going to keep it as short as we can. I'll try and get it covered up in the next 15 to 20 minutes, is to build a speech-to-text transcript of a podcast. It's such an interesting time of the year right now where everybody kind of wants to be doing podcasts. And I think at the moment, when you see some of the things happening in the news with different podcasts coming up and down, it's a really interesting part where, yes, there is podcasts kind of coming up there. They're talking about all these things. But when you really look at the kind of niche area, are they actually accessible? So I run a podcast, which is called Paths Uncovered, and it's essentially about discovering untraditional pathways into technology. If you've had a weird tech pathway, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you. If that's something of an interest, feel free to hop on over it. This is definitely a self-plug, but it's an interesting topic. How do people get into the careers that they are? But what I found was, as I've been making it, it's really easy to put it up onto a podcast service, and you can go sit there and listen to it, or you can actually watch it visually in a video format on YouTube, which is great. You can watch and listen at the same time to us reacting to different parts of it, or seeing how a person actually communicates visually. But what is missing is the fact that if you've got any kind of hearing impairments or disabilities around it, there isn't really an option for you in any of those scenarios. What do? YouTube can provide captions, but it's not necessarily at a stage where it's 100% confirmed of accuracy. So this is kind of where it all started up for me, where I was like, well, I want to make sure, like, the whole podcast and the ethos behind it is getting diverse voices into technology and highlighting all these different areas of, hey, there's people who come into technology from different backgrounds. And that includes people from not necessarily a fully accessible life. So this is where, when I look at the ethos behind the podcast and the fact that it isn't accessible, it wasn't sitting right with me. So the accessibility areas that I wanted to focus on was creating a speech to text of the audio that we talked about. I wanted to make sure that there was a separation of speakers. So if you're looking at a transcript, you need to be able to say, okay, Akansha said this, and then the guest said this, and this was the conversation that happened. And the big other thing that I wanted to make sure was the ease of creation. So this is very much a part-time thing that I do on the side. I don't necessarily make any money from it. It's just something of an interest and a hobby. So definitely need to be easy to do and also not too time consuming. I definitely don't have enough time after doing the editing and recording and everything else to be sitting down and writing out 40-minute transcripts of a podcast. So this is kind of where I'm like, well, I am supposedly a data scientist and a data consultant. Surely there is a automated way of doing this and solving this problem. So with that, let's jump into a demo, and I'll go through exactly how I went about doing this. So I hopped into Azure, and first thing kind of did was, how do I go about doing this? So we can look up speech services. If I can use my keyboard properly, that would be a great start. But I went into speech services and I created a service. So this is essentially part of the cognitive services offerings that Azure AI has, which will provide you with the ability to do anything speech related. So whether that's speech to text or converting different languages and translations, all those kind of different parts of it sit within the speech service. And in creating anything new in Azure, very straightforward as always, you create a resource group, which essentially means it's a library of all the things you want to create under one umbrella. And when you're done with an experiment, you can delete the whole thing in one go. So you don't have anything costing you at the other end of it. And you can create new or use an existing one. So I'll just use this one for now. Pick your region, wherever it exists. This does exist in Australia, so I will go as close to home as I can. And you give it a name, whichever one you'd like to do. I don't know, let's call it test. And there's different areas of pricing tiers available. I've already created one, a free tier one, which is the one I'm using for this demo here today. But you'll be able to go through and basically pick whichever one you'd like, and you'll be able to have a quick look through the different pricing tiers that they have. The free tier is quite accessible. Honestly, it is very free. I can go onto it. I can run a whole transcription of the podcast, and it doesn't create any issues for me. So let me show you what this looks like once it's been created. Let me discard that because I've already created this. So this is kind of what it looks like. And I don't really need to do much more with this other than just basically being able to use my keys and endpoints here. So once you've created the service, that's kind of all you need to do. You kind of walk away from it. This isn't as hands-off of a service as the other low-code platforms. You will need to do a bit more work around this, which is what I'll show you exactly how I went about doing that. So the first thing I need is my data, which is my audio recordings. So I created a blob store. Check sample is what I called it. Very creative. But essentially in a blob storage container, I just popped up all the different audio files that I have. So for example, Selena Small was a guest that I had, and I've essentially split her audio into 4 different files just to make them a little bit smaller and a quicker to process, and just pop them into the blob store. Now, once I've done that, I'm like, okay, I've got my data ready and stored away somewhere that I can access it from. I head on over into my Azure Machine Learning Studio. And this is where I created a notebook, and this is how I'm going to actually use the speech service. And it's quite a bit of Python coding, but bear in mind, I didn't create any of this code. This was all found from the GitHubs that exist out there. I very much just copy pasted a lot of the code in because it's ready to go and tweaked it a bit to fit my needs here today, which is honestly the best way of doing most of these kind of ad hoc projects that you want to create for yourself. Don't recreate the wheel. It's already been created. Leverage what you can wherever you can from. I will share all the links afterwards in terms of where you can find these GitHub profiles and things like that. So you can essentially just import a library, which is the speech SDK. And this is where you'll be able to read everything from. So this was just a quick test that I ran, and I talked directly into the microphone. So this is essentially just setting it up in terms of, hey, use my speech service that I've created. It's in this region, and there's a subscription ID, which is the ones I just showed you in the service that we created a minute ago. What is the audio input going to be? And untitled files. I just very quickly recorded a very short file and popped it into just this folder here. Oop, I shouldn't have clicked home. My bad. Let me go back into my notebooks. Files. So I just uploaded the file into my direct notebook folder here, which is a direct upload into the service itself, and asked it to essentially read it and then print it out. And it said, running this test to make sure that my vowel can be. So not fully there, but kind of almost there. And honestly, at this stage, I was kind of looking for it to be about 70 to 80% accurate. And then we can kind of make it slowly retrain on the things I've already been able to teach it. Because if you kind of hear it, I am Irish. Accents kind of play into people's kind of pathways and stuff. So I knew that was going to be a thing, which is completely fine. I just wanted to see how I might do very quickly. So this was the introduction of the podcast, which is about a 3-minute file. So I just wanted to run that very quickly, just the first little bit of it, and see how well it might do on a really specific context. And as you can see, it didn't pick up my name. It said I'm Contra Malik. My name isn't Contra, it's a Contra. But it got Malik, not too far right. And I didn't expect it to be able to find all the different, very specific niche use cases for me. Pats uncovered, maybe I say Pats without the H somehow. Pats, I don't know. Yeah, but as in, it's essentially almost there. A lot of the things have been pulled up very quickly and easily. So that was essentially kind of what I did. And this was kind of directly relating it to the Azure Machine Learning Notebook. Now, I wanted to be able to create a overall pipeline scenario where I don't have to do too much. It's a lot more automated. So this is essentially where I'm creating a blob store that I showed you and getting to read it from there directly. So setting that all up took a bit of time, but let me just clarify, all I had to put in was just the links to where my specific files sat. Everything else was pulled in from the GitHub that already existed. So this is where it's a lot of code. You don't have to worry about most of it. I just kind of ran it, and I was like, okay, let's see what this will run for me. A lot of it's already been kind of coded out for you. I'm happy with it. And this is kind of what it looks like. So it tells you that it succeeded. This is the one it ran. This is where it ran. And this is the kind of output it gives you. I hope it's a little bit okay for you to read. I know it's a little bit small. But basically what it's saying is channel 0. It's telling you the lexical, which just means these are the exact words I read. The ITN essentially just means it's adding in kind of any words or anything you want to add, like hide or mask anything else if you want to add. Basically, you can do things like if you're cursing, it'll call those out. And then it'll actually go through, and in the display format, it'll actually add grammar into it. So it'll put the capitalizations in, and it'll go through and add the commas and the I apostrophe M, capital J for a name, things like that are automatically put into it for you. So there's different levels of clarifications it will do, and it'll actually give you all of that back. But you can go through and pick it up. So this is broken down then into phrases. So this is the first phrase, and basically the first thing you saw was the one that had the highest likelihood of being correct. What you'll see is it'll also give you the other best options and the kind of confidence it had in them. So you can pick and choose whichever you'd like, but it does that then for the whole scenario. So it's very broken apart. It's a big, big, long JSON file format. So let me just show you how big it actually was. It kind of kept going, but I then kept trying. So this was like, I'm just showing you exactly how I prototyped this whole thing, and I was just trying this all out for myself. I then tried it again and was now running it on the full 3.5-minute clip. And this time, it took a lot longer to run this. As you can see, it's still running. Did take a couple of minutes, not too long, but just a couple of minutes. And now you can see this is a 3-minute big chunk of blocks. And that's hard to read, right? Like even just looking at that, it's hard to interpret and hard to understand. At some stage, apparently I said Akash Malik. That's a guy's name in India, but look, getting closer to Akansha apparently. But it's actually like, it's kind of an enjoyable pastime, just like reading some of the things that very clearly gets wrong. But there's different variations and this keeps going. Like this is a very big file. But what I got from this was like, okay, this is definitely working to a level that I wanted to be working at. And I can pull this out and see what it actually gives me. So now the actual episode, the main point here is the fact that there's going to be two people talking. So I need to be able to make sure that I can understand that there's two and differentiate the fact that there's two. So I ran it on the actual episode. I ran a full episode here. Again, the code is exactly the same in each of these scenarios, which I just kind of kept rerunning and testing different little bits. And again, it did it. I was like, oh, amazing. Okay, this seems to have done something. It's a big, long chunk. Has it done it correctly? I don't know. This is where I started pulling out the data out of the JSON format and started putting it into essentially a pandas format. So I can actually read what it was outputting. And what you'll see here is it's doing ones, twos, ones, and twos, which means it's separating out the two speakers. So speaker number one, speaker number two, and then it's telling you exactly what's being said in each of those contexts. So the fact that you're seeing multiple different ones, it stops after every kind of utterance, which is a sentence. So it identifies when there's a break and it's like, okay, you're stop talking, next thing. But at the same time, it's also identifying the fact that it's Akansha still speaking. Okay, another sentence is still Akansha, another one still Akansha. Oh, different voice, this is now the guest. So it's identifying that. And then the next bit was me essentially pulling a lot of pandas in to kind of make it look a bit more understandable, kind of collate all these ones into one speaker, into multiple different sentences and paragraphs. And essentially what that comes out to, as you can see, there's just pandas coding here and there. It can be a lot cleaner, but it's just, again, this is a test scenario. This is what we finally ended out to be. So Akansha said, sorry, it's like there's this budget. And Rachel said, so I'm this chief student entrepreneur, and keeps going. It's kind of shortened down the words here into just very first 5 words of a sentence. But that's a transcript of everything that was said in that audio clip that would have provided it to. And I was able to output that as a CSV and very easily go into my website and actually upload that. So Rachel Dagg was a guest on episode 13. She was amazing. She kind of did psychology and worked on yachts, did naturopathy, nutritional science, and then ended up kind of founding a AI health tech company, which worked on all these kind of how do we save food from hospitals, from going to waste and things like that. Very interesting conversation, which, like I mentioned, you can go listen to it, you can go watch it, and now you can actually also read it. So in this is about 70 to 80% accurate most times. And I'll usually go through, at least in the first little bit, to make sure names and the name of the podcast and the guest are correct. And other than that, I'll leave it go. And it's been segregated. It's kind of all basically there. There is a very big warning at the time at the top where it's still training, it's still learning. It will get better, but there's mistakes. And what the aim of this is the fact that what I want to be able to now do is I've kind of got a transcript that's 70 to 80% accurate. I can manually go in and now fix that up to about 95 to 100% myself, which will take a lot less work, and then create custom models on top of this to be able to go, okay, pattern covered, please understand this word as a model and make sure you understand this going forward, which will bring that 70 to 80% off the bat accuracy all the way up to maybe 95. So that's going to be my next project, using custom speech modeling, based on the fact that I've now got half of the data to do it. So what this has essentially done is very quickly provided me with an accessible pathway into hosting this podcast, but it's also giving me the data that I can then use to more leverage more custom models in the future without having to like sit there and transcribe 45-minute episodes every single time by myself, which would just take me very long time. Others maybe not so long, but me would take at least 2 hours probably to get that done. Not the fastest typer out there, but yeah, this has kind of cut down my time that I will need to spend on it to probably about 20 minutes to fix up a 40-minute transcript. So those transcripts are now available up there. My aim is to get this whole pipeline automated so that once I've uploaded the audio files into my blob store, for it to go run the model, produce those CSVs, ready to go for me to then just pop up into the website. That's where I want to get it to. And once it's gotten to that, I want to be able to create some of those custom models. So let me just bring back the slide deck. That's kind of everything from me. I feel like I've just gone very quickly through it all. I hope you kind of understood where I was coming from and what I wanted to do with this. Again, it's a very kind of a prototype of me just trying out what I can do with this, where it can go. But that's the whole point of this. It's essentially being able to leverage what's around you very quickly to help make your own life a little bit easier and a bit more accessible for others. So thank you for listening. I feel like there's been a conversation going on the side in the comments, which is great to see. So if there are questions, I will happily take some. Just going to try and go back and read if there might be. The process is known as reusability. Agreed. I've never recreate the wheel when you can avoid it. It's amazing what you can do without it. But yeah, look, I'll leave it there for today. We do have our next speaker on the way, I think. So we might take a little break while we wait for the next speaker. So we'll be back about 1 p.m., which is about 3 minutes. So maybe if I go run to the bathroom, which is what I'm going to do in a second, and get some water, which is also going to be what I do in a second. My throat is absolutely parched. But take a minute, have a bit of lunch, whatever you might have to do, and we'll be back with JK talking to us about how to use ML.NET with us in a minute. Okay, so we're coming back into our next talk. And I think I confused the agenda. I think it's meant to be Somi next. My bad. But I think there's conversations about JK's talk already happening in the comments. So let's get JK onto the stream. And we'll hand it over to him to talk about ML.NET. Sorry about my confusion about the agenda, but we'll hand it away, Jurgen, and feel free to take it away. I know there's someone in the comments definitely looking forward to hearing how you worked it out.
Yeah, just let me share my screen and just confirming everything sounds good.
Yep, sounds great.
Share my screen, go back to the presentation. Everything good? Just put this on the screen so I can see.
I think we somehow lost JK for some reason very quickly. Oh no. Okay. In that case, Somi, I'm going to pull you in. We are going to stick to the agenda in that case. If you're feeling good to go, we will jump straight in with Somi, who's going to be talking about Form Recognizer, which, again, another fabulous product in terms of not having to recreate the wheel. Somi, I will hand it over to you. Tushar, in the comments, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait another 20 minutes before you'll have your questions answered. JK will be back and take it over then. So until then, Somi, tell us all about Form Recognizer.
Thanks, Akansha. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm enjoying the talk. I hope you all do the same. It's pretty broad, and I've been listening since the start, so it's fun. I hope you enjoy my session too. I know we've got 20 minutes, so I'll get it started. Let me share my screen, and then we can get it going. Alrighty. All right. My name is Somi Ayozi. I'm a Microsoft AI MVP, and I'm here to talk about Azure Form Recognizer Studio, which is a new addition tool to the Azure Form Recognizer, which I'll explain a bit later. You probably seen me in the AI podcast. So I am currently I'm working in Atlassian, but I am part of the community and I enjoy being part of the community. I am co-organizing one of our meetups, user groups, which is APAC AI community, and I'm one of the co-hosts of a global AI podcast alongside with 3 other lovely Microsoft MVPs. We are running session, we are talking to different guests, and I'm enjoying every episode of it. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into the presentation. So I'm going to talk about Azure Form Recognizer. So, and then I will show a demo of the Azure Form Recognizer Studio. As I said, it's a new tool, which is in the version 3 of it. But what is Azure Form Recognizer? Azure Form Recognizer, it is an, whoops, I went one slide ahead. All right. Azure Form Recognizer is a cloud-based applied AI services. So it's basically a wrapper around cognitive services with some task-specific component attached to it, and you can add also business logic attached to it as well. So it's basically a wrapper on the cognitive services. What it does, it helps you to use machine learning to extract and analyze field, text, tables structure, and documents. It helps you to kind of find a key value pair. It kind of understand your document. So it helps you to understand the different structure of your document. It will help you to understand, to extract the key pair value of your context. And it will help you to, and then it will try to give you the specific context. And with that, you can decide whether to use that context or not. You can decide what format of the context you want to use. And it kind of try to give your a meaning to your data, I would say. What it has, the cool thing is, it uses the automated data processing, and it uses REST API underneath. And the cool thing is, it gives you a JSON, formatted JSON object. So you give it unstructured data, it will is a return. As a result, it will give you a JSON format output, which is very easy to use and really handy, I would say. It will reduce the speed time for developers to be able to spin up something, to understand the context, to understand the services, and what feature within Azure form recognizer they can use or not. There are other Azure applied AI services like bot services that Arafat touched as well. There is a metric advisor, video analyzer, cognitive search, and immersive reader as well. And I guess Sakib initially in a keynote, he touched base on that one as well. So there is a lot of applied AI services available that I'm sure Microsoft will be adding more to it. It is, as I said, it is heavily relying on the cognitive services. So it's a wrapper. It's trying to reduce maybe the configuration. So it will kind of be easier for us to use and start coding. I would say it definitely reduced the time, the speed time from months to days, I would say. Back to Azure Form Recognizer. So it detects, if you want to go a little bit in details, it detects the layout of the documents, if it's table, if it's object, if it's checkbox. It has a couple of pre-built layout that you can quickly use, like invoice recognizer or a business card recognizer, which I'm going to touch base on those in the demo as well. So it has pre-built model that you can quickly use. It has been tailored to your own need, to your most use cases or common use cases, I would say. But in the side of that one, you have the custom layout as well that you can train your own model, and you can train the model based on your specific format or based on your business need that you have. You can train it as well. It can be integrated to other services. You can use it alongside AI search and build a powerful knowledge mining system for your organization. You can attach it to different workflows, and you can create a good or logic app, and you can create a you can implement your business processes in more automated fashion and in more intelligent fashion. It will support printed and handwritten languages, which is what I like as well. I've got the worst handwriting. I'm keen to see how I can read it out. But the good thing is there is, I guess, more than 160 languages, printed languages that it can detect, and there are 8 or 9 written languages that it can identify and detect. It supports the last bit is it support the multiple languages, which is good. There is a lot of language out there apart from English that so Microsoft is trying to generalize its component and its feature, which is good. There are languages, not all left to right. There are languages from right to left as well, and they are keep adding different languages, and it's gonna be it's going to be very handy, because if you think I'm just gonna touch base on the different cases, but if you think out of the box, if your organization is spread across continents, you have the options to. Every country has the option to go by their own languages, but with this feature, you can get the documents, you can extract information from that document, you can combine it with different cognitive services, you can translate that script, that text to your destination script, let's say English, and start and feeding those data to your organization and utilize those information in a better fashion. Assume that all those manuals that you needed to go through to get to this point. But what my point is Microsoft is trying to make it a lot easier. And I quickly touch base on when I was talking to our guest today. I'm up for low-code, no-code solution. I'm going to see where Microsoft has helped or AI has helped either users or developers to make their life easier, whether developing a solution or building a business application. All right. Back to Azure Form Recognizer. I stopped switching between switching context now. The feature that Azure Form Recognizer has, at the moment, the version 2.1 is GA, but there is another version 3, which is preview, so that there are some additional items in version 3 that I'm going to talk about. So as I mentioned, the layout API, it is for us to be able to use to understand and detect the context. You can understand the table, you can understand the checkboxes, you can understand the list. So it will detect the structure or formatting for documents. And the cool thing, it gives you a JSON file. So you have the pre-built JSON file that you can clean up, choose the one that you want and remove the one that you don't want, and start using that within extend your development process. The other one that it has, it's a custom model. As I said, you have the custom model. So if none of the pre-built model suits your needs, you can go back and define and use the custom model, and it will train your own model. In version 2, it has, in addition, in version 2 is the signature detection. So in version 2, you couldn't detect the signature, but now in version 3 with the custom model, you have the option to detect the signature as well, which is really good. For example, you have a bunch of documents with different signage, so you can like extract the signature, store it in the right format, and you can use that later on as well. So you can detect and distinguish between different signature among the documentation. You can categorize it by the person who has signed those documents. So it's very easy to use these features and come up with different scenarios that you can rely on. The other one is receipt model. It is, at the moment, it's basically on the US-based receipt model, but I would assume most of the receipts common across different countries. And when I tested, it will pick up different. I tested with Australian one, it will pick up the information. So we'll try, the model has already been trained to extract the invoice receipt as well. So it extracts all the relevant information for you, and it's already pre-built. So it's very accurate to set up and use. But if you don't want to use it, you can go and use custom model and train it based on your specific need that you have. Similar to that one, there is an ID document model. At the moment, it is extracting vehicle restriction, driving license. It is mainly US based, but when I try with my own license, they pick up the information. But it might not be as accurate as the US version. I'm sure they will add more use cases and more formats of different IDs, which fits different countries to it later on as well. The other one is general document model. General document model is kind of the combination of all. It will detect the layout, it will detect the context, it will try to extract the key pair value if it exists, it will try to extract the information or the segment of the documents, and it try to define or give context to your documents. So as you can see, you have different options to use. Business cards are already covered. That you're going to a meetup, you want to extend your network, you want to talk to different people, you've been getting lots of business cards, and you want to store those information somewhere. So the quickest way is take a photo, use that. Any small you can create like a prototype. You can have you can use a feature to just take a scan, read the documents, and store the documents somewhere else. You can use Power Apps to do that. You can build something with Azure Form Recognizer to do that for you. So it's very easy to spin up, and you can see different use cases. The other one, it is W2, which I noticed has been added recently, and it is to extract the employer information. So W2 is a US-based form for wages and tax, which is a US-specific documentation. And with that format, you can extract the employer's information, the wage information, and at the moment it is US specific, but I'm sure they will add more. And even if there is no pre-built model, we can use our own custom model, and we can build our own model for ourselves. All right, I guess I'm good with time. Let's jump into the demo. Let me see if I can, without closing my... Last time when I was presenting, I accidentally closed the whole session. So I guess we're good now. So in version 2, there wasn't any tooling available. There was one tooling available, which was a simple labeling tooling within Azure Form Recognizer that you can scan and categorize and maybe tag your content. So there wasn't any a powerful tool for developers to use and understand which model or which API they need to go by. But in version 2, this studio is kind of a good tool for developers to play around with the documents that they have without going to the documentation itself. So I know we can start writing code and start using and consuming the APIs, but which of these APIs we're going to go by and use. So I guess this tool gives us a good understanding, or this is a good test and trial to see which pre-built model or which API will give us the best answer. And I really like that Microsoft added these features to not only ease up the developer's life, it also decrease the speed time, the lead time for preparation for developers, right? And going and trying, you can test it here quickly, see the result, and then extend your application after playing with this one. So I'm going to test a few of those, and I'm going to show you how it will detect, and I will show you the result of it. I will go, this read has been added recently since last time I did this presentation. Read has been added, so it will extract the printed and handwritten text as well from image and documents. As you can see, they keep adding more features to it, which is really cool to see. Let's start with the layout. All right, this is one sample. I added 2 more samples as well that we can test as well. So I'm going to analyze it. As I mentioned earlier, it will extract or detect the structure of your documents. It will understand table. There's a table. If I select, you can see the context of that table as well. If it's a checkbox, you can see the checkbox and the information, and you can see the accuracy of the information that it has been picked as well. You have the option to exclude or include the items or the layout from your documents, or you can leave it like this. The cool thing is the result is in JSON format. So you can just grab that result. If you're defining your data model, you can grab this, define it, and use it. So it's very easy rather than us going and reading the documents manually and try to write our model. You can use these, copy and paste it, remove the one that you want. So you have that ready for you to use. And also you have the pseudocode that you can use as well. There are other SDKs available apart from Python that you can use as well. In version 2, there was only REST, I guess, REST API SDK, but in version 3, the other SDK has been added as well. So you can go ahead and try it out. This one is with Python. You can download. So this is basically a pseudocode that you can just copy and paste and start using it. I'm going to go back. I've got 5-6 minutes. I want to go back and try the general documentation. One thing that I'm keen to try is, I talked about the languages. At the moment, Form Recognizer only supports English, or to be exact, left to right languages. Not only English, more than one English, but right to left languages. It's not left to right languages, not the other way around. But what I did, I was cheeky and I decided to test the document with the different languages and see how it will react. But before getting that, let's try and see what this general document gives us. So when we don't know where to go, before going back to the custom model, I guess general document, that could be a good option for us. It will try, it's a combination of different models, and it will try to detect as much as it can. All right, let's run this analysis. Taking a bit of time. Could be because of the scan, but let's see. Come on. Bye. Let me add my own documents if you don't like your own sample. What? That is new. Not now, not today. It exceeded my pricing tier. Okay. It's going to take a while for me to go and change that, but let's see if I can test. Are you serious? All right. Let me go back. Not today. All right. Let me quickly see if I can add my own model and try it out. Sorry. It was working just before, but now it decided to not. One thing that I'm keen to show you, if it works, is a document which has the 2 languages, left to right and right to left languages. So let's see if it can work. I hope it does, but with the tiering warning that I get, I might not. Oh, it did. Awesome. That is good. So I'll go by this one. On the left side, you will see the language which is left to right. On the right side, there is a language which is right to left side. So even though it says in the documentation it doesn't support, but it actually picked up some of the items. It picked up the layout. So understood there's a table. And if I check the table, the accuracy of the details on the right to left language is pretty accurate. So it could pick up the information. Even if you might not understand what it is, it picked it up. So it's kind of cool that where Microsoft is heading, and Microsoft is trying to cater for other languages as well, which is really good to see. So with this, I could detect the information English and the other language as well. It will give me the key pair value of the items, which is really good. And also, as always, I will have the JSON file and I have the pseudocode of it that I can use. If there is another one that I'm going to try, and I'm going to trust my pricing tier that works this time as well, is the document and the scan that is not very good quality. Let me just go back and test that one out. That one actually was with this one, I guess. Let's see. Yes, this one. As you can see, the scan doesn't look very good, but when I try, it could pick up the information. So even though it might not be able to detect the information, it can read it out and it can extract the information, which is good. I didn't do this. What happened to the demo? Yeah, as you can see, key pair values. You can almost everything has been detected, not the title, that's fine, but you can see the confidence level of the item that has been picked up, which is good. It's 100% is pretty good. But if you don't see the accuracy that you want, you can choose the custom model, you can train your model further down the track. But what my goal was to show you guys this demo to understand you can test any documents that you have here before you start coding. You can try different documents, different format, and see which of these models or which of these APIs suits your need, and you can start choosing that. And you can start building your application. So as a developer, I'm not going to go ahead and start coding. I'm going to test my my documents, different organization, different units, different format of documentation, different continent, different language of documentation, different documents with different languages. So I would come to this place, I will test, and then I'll start coding. And with coding, it actually gives them the pseudocode and the JSON, which is really handy, and it will help me to extend my development and will reduce the time of me developing, which is good. All right, sorry about the technical difficulty. I have to fix up my pricing tier later on. So some of the use cases, I already covered this, but I'll quickly go through that. What to choose, when to choose, you can ask this question. What type of documents do you want to analyze? Is it invoice, receipt, or business card? Is this English text? If it's yes, use invoice, the pre-built model. If it's not, use layout, general documentation, which is in preview. The other use case for us, where are you going? The other use case for us is if your document is ID documents, driving license, vehicle registration. If it's in English, if it's US based, if you go and try with Australian Embassy, it will work as well. It might not be as accurate as US, but it will work. But let's say if it's US based, go ahead and use ID document. If it's not, layout and general documentation is your go-to place. The last one, if it's form or documents, and if it's like a structured format, if it's industry or common industry documents that you have, yes, for sure, go ahead with layout or general documents. If not, you can use, you can train and your own model, custom model. So the last place that we can go, we can fall back on custom model and train a model and build a model that suits our need. There are many use cases of, I guess I passed my time, but I'm going to use 2 more minutes and then I will wrap up my presentation. I want to talk about the general use cases that you can see. Organization-wide, or if you are working in a consulting company, you might have organization that they have some needs. So you're working in an organization that they are receiving lots of invoices from different parties with a different format. You want the quick way, or maybe simple way, to be able to automate that process, and you want to be able to extract the right information, integrate it to your CRM or different application that you have. So what we can do, we can extract it. For example, that invoice is coming through the email from the attachment. You can use Logic App. You can add those documents in your blob storage. You can use the Azure Form Recognizer to extract the information from those documents. You can categorize those documents, and then you can extract those information, send it through. Either it's going to be Power BI dashboard or your ERP system. You have the information handy in your hand, in your system. You can make the most use of it. So this is the simple solution that you can have, right? And the manual or old ways of doing it. This is a quickest way to automate your process. The other one that is really cool and I really like is in the knowledge mining. Every single organization that I come across, they are building something as knowledge base, and they are using a portion or a fraction of knowledge mining in their organization. So in order to do the knowledge mining, what do we need to do? Then for the knowledge mining, information can be structured data or unstructured data. You want to be able to surface the right information and the correct information to your users, regardless of the source. And with this, with the help of cognitive services, we have that option to be able to build a powerful solution for our customer, which surface all the data, regardless of the resources, regardless of the format. So you can enrich your data using cognitive services, using Apply AI, and you can surface those information through bot, through Power BI, different systems, CRM or ERP. So there is a lot that we can do with knowledge mining. And the last one that I want to going back to the knowledge mining is, for example, as I mentioned, your information can come from different places. Oopsie. Why did you move? I didn't ask you to move. Your information coming from different parties. It can be PDF, Office, it can be unstructured, stored in OneDrive, it can be anything. So those information, you want to be able to collate those information, unify those information, and then surface those information to your customers. So the three section of the knowledge mining is to train your model, ingest and enrich your data, and then surface those information to your end users. And this is one of the design that is available in Microsoft website that you can go and you can use it out. As you can see, it relies on the OCR, cognitive services, to extract the information. It will use the document classification. If it's an image, it will use the document classification. And you can also use form recognizer to extract the data of that information. You can collect all this information with these bits and tools and services. You can store those information in any database that you have and you're using, and you can train and you can surface the information later on. As I said, you can integrate this information or you can use it as a knowledge-based platform for your organization or for your customers. There is a lot that we can do with AI, and there is a lot that there is a lot of investment happening across the organization to add intelligence to their solution. And what I really like is, alongside the way Microsoft is trying to ease up the process for the developers and the users. So with the low code or no code solution, the sample that Akansha mentioned earlier as well, minimum coding. So you just need to understand the concept, you need to understand the tool, and then there you go, the land is yours. If you want to explore more, I'll share these links later on as well. So there's AI School, AI Lab that you can go ahead and try it out. There are different, you can try different cognitive services, and you can see which one you like, and you can start playing around with it. If you want to know more about knowledge mining, there is a good sample of different use cases on the knowledge mining that you can use as well. I hope you enjoyed the session, and as I said, at the end, AI is here to empower us to be able to do more with the technology. And I hope you guys enjoyed the session, and sorry, I guess I passed 5 minutes of my time.
It's no problem. Honestly, anyone that deals with live demos deserves anything they need at the time. Well, no, honestly, like you played it through really, really well. And you I think it's so much better when in the nicest way when demos go wrong, because it's like you're live seeing exactly how your experience would be when you're trying it out for yourself. You get to do a bit of that as well. So thank you so much. There are a few questions in the chat that I'd ask you to flip on into and maybe answer them there. And we'll get JK up and running for his session up next. So I think he's back. I think everything's working well. So JK, I will hand it straight over to you. Take us through exactly what we're going to do with ML.NET, and I will walk away for now.
Yeah, just before we go, just to confirm, everything looks fine. Everything sounds fine.
Everything looks fine. If there's any issues, I'll jump back in and let you know.
Yeah, there seems to be a motherboard issue specifically with my processor, and StreamYard seems to be triggering. Teams didn't, so I didn't notice this until now. But hopefully next time I'll be fixing those issues. It just takes a bit of time to fix it. Anyways, today I'm going to talk about how you can get from data to AI quickly with ML.NET. So there's an interesting story behind this. We at our company, we had a day where we brainstorm ideas, and I was like, well, I'm MVP AI, so maybe I can get something that people can just learn real quick, and we can then turn it into a real thing that everyone uses. And this is kind of showing you what we did, but also going to teach you a little bit about what is machine learning in case you got lost in that terminology. So hopefully by the end, you'll be able like, maybe I can do some machine learning. All right, so let's get started. I am Jene Kavka. You can just call me JK. I am a solution architect at SSW. You can follow me at all of these socials. I'm also the one of the organizers of Global AI Podcast, as well as APEC AI, Brisbane Full Stack, and a couple of others. And predominantly, I'm a .NET Core and EF Core developer. I'm specialized in that. But I'm working a lot with cognitive services, and I'm very enthusiastic about ML.NET. All right, so what I'm going to do is very ambitiously try to explain what is machine learning in 90 seconds. That's the fastest that I tried, so to squeeze everything in 20 minutes. Then I'll go and tell you just a little bit about ML.NET model builder, and at the end, I'm going to show you one of the examples, clever Gitmojis, where we try to take a good idea where every commit, every work we do as developers and content creators on GitHub, we wanted to add an emoji to it, but it was difficult to figure out which emoji to pick. And of course, how better to solve problems than AI, right? So, okay, let's get started. What is machine learning? 90-second edition. Okay, so if you know classical programming, in classical programming, we have rules and we have data. Rule is something your client or somebody else gives you, tells you this is how you need to do things. And then at the end, you get answers with the code that you have written. Now, with machine learning, it's kind of a bit of a reverse. So you have the data like before, but now you have answers to all of that data. So now machine learning tries to figure out the rules for you. So it's kind of a reverse role of how you get the rules. And to explain this a little bit with rock, paper, scissors, because a lot of people know rock, paper, scissors. If you do classical programming, you say if rock, then paper, if paper, then scissors, and so on and so forth. Here we have only 3 cases. It's simple, right? If you do machine learning, you actually can just do an Excel sheet. You can do one column, all of the opponent moves, and another column, what would be the winning move. And you can train, and it will figure it out, the rules out on its own. Now, this is a little bit simple example. So what if we do rock, paper, scissors, lizard, spot? Or maybe we could do cats versus dogs and all of that kind of things. And now you get into scenario where, okay, if I just put in all of the opponent moves and all of the winning moves and everything is fine, it will just learn the rules as long as there's no contradictions, like what would win cats versus dog. I think that is undecidable. Although if I had to decide, it might be dog. Here, the rules are learned by the machine learning. So you don't have to write rules manually. It does it for you. All right, so hopefully you got a little bit of what is machine learning in 90 seconds, probably 100 seconds, but let's move on. So what is ML.NET Model Builder? Well, it's a ML.NET is a C# SDK for machine learning. It's open source, it's simple yet powerful, like all C# libraries should be. And Model Builder is a extension for Visual Studio and VS Code. And it's designed to be easy to use, gives you some nice quick prototyping. You can basically change your data, just click train and quickly test out if it works better. And it has many scenarios already built in, so you don't have to think about how they actually even get started. So here's a screenshot of the ML.NET Model Builder, and what you can see, we can just click on data classification, value prediction, image classification, and it guides us through what do we need to do to get this working. Now, the problem that we try to solve is something to do with Gitmojis. And before we go into the demo itself, what is Gitmoji? Now, if you have ever worked on GitHub repos, GitHub projects or Git projects, you might see a history like this. And on the glance, when you try to figure out what was happening that day or last week, what you'll see here is, okay, somebody done something with a README, and then we have some pull requests. The name's a bit unfortunate, so who knows what happened. Now, if we go into Gitmoji style, what you can see here is I can quickly see, okay, we have 2 UI fixes, 2 new features, and there was one typo fix. So if I'm interested in what UI changes have been done or what new features has been done, I can visually see which commits I should check out. And that helps me save a lot of time trying to read through every single commit message. So what's the problem? What did we try to solve is basically not every Git user knows how to use Git emojis. There's a good reason for it. So a lot of the Git emojis have a bit of vague description and no examples. And that can be sometimes hard to figure out, okay, supposed to use that Git emoji or that one? And there's 69 official Gitmojis. I did not make that number up. It's the real number. And that causes a problem where it's really hard to find the right emoji. And as a result, either people don't use Git emojis or there's no consistency, which actually defeats the purpose of Git emoji to begin with. So what is the solution? Of course, AI. So what we did is we used machine learning to determine correct Git emoji. And what we also give the ability is through suggestions, we are improving the predictions much better. And everything is open source. So if you have your own suggestions, you can just give us an issue and we'll update the model. Also, you'll be able to even download the model if you like to, or even recreate it. So this is kind of the thing that we did, and here you can see that we've written some text, removed old code, and that's the Git emoji for that would be fire. And if we try to update the README, it would be a notepad. So you just type in, and that happens everything automatically. Now let's go into how do we actually done this. So I'm going to open a Visual Studio. And I'll just create a new project, and that project will be just a console application. Doesn't matter name. We'll just quickly create a project. And over here, we have a project. So what I'm going to do next is, well, first you want to check if you have the extension. So what you want to go is go to Manage Extensions, and go to the installed and check if you have ML.NET Model Builder. If you don't have, just search for it and install it. All right, so to get started, right-click on the project, Add Machine Learning Model. Now we need to name it. Now the project, we call the whole thing as Fire Emoji, but we like to have our nickname Gitmo, short for Git emoji. And what we have here is different scenarios. Now, I've done a lot of beta testing with the ML.NET, so the images don't work. It will work on your machine. So we'll go with the option of data classification. I'll go next. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to browse. I'm going to Git, going to the actual project that we have. I'll open up the data and commit messages. So I'll also open this up in VS Code, so we'll be able to check it a little bit more, what we have. And here we have the data preview of the data. So if I bring back the VS Code with all of the data, what you can see here is we kind of have a CSV with first column being the emoji that we want to predict, and second column is the text. So you can imagine this text to be anything else you really want, and like you want to predict what action the user want to do, or your client, maybe they call a call center and say, I want this to be fixed. And that would be the text over here. And the first column would be then the action. In this case, we have emojis. So the next stage that we do here, now that we have selected the CSV, is open the column and select the column 0, because we don't have right now column names, to basically be the column that we want to predict. If you want to do some modifications, we can do advanced data options. We can then select here what data structures is. Maybe we want to have as Boolean or as a number. Here you have categorical. It just means that instead of looking at text and split it up into different words, it can look at as one whole. With emojis, you can do categorical because it's just one character long. With the column 2, we want to be able to split it up in multiple words so that it can do associations word to the Git emoji. And also you can do formatting. For instance, if you have a European style document, you want to go from a decimal dot to decimal comma, or if you have headers and it didn't automatically detect them. All right, now let's go next. I put him 90 seconds. And what I'm going to do here is, while this is happening, quickly check if there's any issues. Nope. All right, so what's happening here is it's taking the data that we had, and it kind of does a 50-50 split. So 50% of the data it uses for training, and 50% of the data is using to evaluate if the training actually is doing a good job trying to figure out what would be the right Git emoji, which basically means that you want to have some duplicates, or more accurately, you want to have variations of the same result in your training data, so that it can split up in such a way where in training data you have some variations of text that is mapped to a particular Git emoji, and in evaluation it will also have some variations that either is the same or slightly different that it can then verify against. And for the training time, you basically need to figure out based on your machine. I usually put it first 30 seconds, and down below over here you can see it tried 5 different training algorithms. I want to keep at least 4 different algorithms and see which one it picked as the best one. And I want to make sure that I give it enough time to always be able to finish the one that was the best score. But I also want to keep it a little bit longer in case, as data changes, that it picks up the better one if if the change of the data would change also which algorithm would be the best one. All right. Now, this is actually, we already done the training. So all we now do is say, I want to add a button. And if I predict this, it does star, which is the correct thing. So I can say, what if I do button style? Now it does lipstick. So now it knows that this is actually meant for doing the styling of the button. So it has some smart, so it, from the data, it learned that, you know, some words actually can change the meaning of the prediction, what should be the Git emoji. And now you can just type your Git commit and you'll get the right emoji. So if you want to use this, it already gives you a C# snippets. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go into details, but what you can see here, the Gitmo file that we have added, if I expanded this, you can see here that it generated some code So this is something that you can use in your project to consume and do predictions. This file over here is the actual model that you can then distribute to other applications through. You can actually regenerate this file, this AI model, and redistribute it without needing to rebuild the application, as long as the inputs and outputs are the same. And you also have the code for retraining. So you can actually retrain your model, get new zip, and then redistribute it. So this code over here gives you an example how to just copy paste in the current project that you have created. But you also have the option to create a console application or web API, and they do some work for you. And if you want to know more about this, you can then check up how to deploy your model and how to improve. Now, to show you this, a real example that we have built, we have a GitHub repo for this particular project. And what you have seen right now, the AI, that's literally what we have done. I've done some abstraction on prediction engine and training, but essentially this is the step how we got to the first prototype. And now we have here, say, add new button, and you can see everything is in real time. I do style. And the cool thing here is when we get prediction, we don't just get the best prediction, we also get the score, how much confidence it has for each of the classification. So here you can see that the second best prediction was a new feature. So if it actually got it wrong, I could actually click this and have this one as the Git emoji rather than the lipstick. And you can click here to copy. And what is also cool when everyone is so excited, oh, wait, we don't need to do all of this. We literally finished this yesterday. We started last week. And now we can say added new button style in VS Code. I can press this, and we got the lipsticks in VS Code inside source code. So kind of when you give people ability to automate things through AI, they start to be very enthusiastic to be able to integrate that. And we are basically trying to improve it. We're giving button to suggest to improve the Git emoji. So if we do get something wrong, or if the machine learning does a wrong prediction, we can fix it up and retrain it. And hopefully over time, we'll get really good accuracy, and most of developers will be able to use Git emojis without needing to think about too hard what is the right Git emoji. All right, this is long story. So basically, the cool thing about this approach is if you do it this way, is you can have as many Git emojis as you want, because you just need to add additional row, add a different Git emoji, and then just do a couple of different cases. And what is a cool thing is a lot of people are trying to do generic AIs, and then they're really terrible for specific case like Git emoji. They're trying to do generic ones for socials, generic and for everything, emails and stuff like that. And that doesn't work for Git emoji. So you can actually do different models. For instance, for Azure DevOps, GitHub tasks, you have a different way of saying things, and you want to map it to different emoji. For email subjects, you want to have different emojis based on different keywords, for socials and things like that. And with that, I've shown you some machine learning, how you, in 90 seconds, showed you what is ML.NET, and showed you how we actually built our first prototype in ML.NET with just simple data that we literally got from the GitHub repository history. We just separated the emojis from the actual Git commit messages, and we just put it into ML.NET. And here are some links if you're interested into looking at ML.NET or what we did, or you're just interested in the source code, so that you can try to use the same thing that we did for your own project. And also, if you're interested in Git emojis and what they are, there's also gitmoji.io. Thank you. Any questions?
I haven't seen any questions at the moment in the chat, but I'm sure they're going to pop in through. So if you want to hang around and answer those in the conversation, JK, as you've already been doing, which I very much appreciate. The chat has been great, so that would be really appreciated. Thank you so much for your presentation, especially the fact that this was something you literally just built out over the last week. It's so fabulous to see it turned around really quickly and you're able to demonstrate that to us.
Yeah, I think it's like once you're starting solving problems for developers and they're like, oh, wait, we have an AI solution, just need to add more data, make sure that it actually works nicely, and then integrating the tools we use and make it more accessible, which is really interesting. Talking about accessibility and adding it into VS Code is an accessibility for developers. Everyone was just like, yeah, we want to get this up and running as fast as possible.
I love that. Right, we will say goodbye to you for now. I'm sure we'll be seeing you around in the community, so you can feel free to reach out to JK. But he will be in the conversation, so if you've any got comments or anything, questions, feel free to leave in the chat. I'm just going to point out for the last time for today, before we head on into our last speaker, I can't believe we're already towards the end of it. It's been such a good lineup. Our sponsor has very quite kindly given us some gift cards to give away. So we've got about 3 up for grabs. Last shout out for this. Feel free to hop in, put your details into the form. We will be announcing 3 winners at the end of Priyanka's session. So with that, let me invite Priyanka onto the stream. So Priyanka's joined us all the way from Singapore, which is the beauty of these kind of virtual events. And I'm really glad you did. And so yeah, look, I'll leave it over to you, Priyanka. Feel free to take it away. And I will be in the background. And yes, make sure you put your names in if you'd like to be in the draw. That's all I have to say.
Sure. All right. I'm going to share my screen. Just let me know if you can see it, and then All right. Can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's start. Thank you for doing this and good show. So I promise towards the end of the day I won't take long, right? Let's jump right in. So I'll be giving you a glimpse of Azure Cognitive Language Services, which has been facilitated by a UI which is called as the Language Studio, right? And we will look at why do we need to have the language services and Language Studio shortly. So briefly about me. So I am an MVP for AI, and you can connect with me on my Twitter handle, which is @fuzzymind1.
Priyanka, I'm just going to jump in very quickly. Sorry about this. Your screen is sharing the
okay, I got it.
If you just want to switch that around.
Yes, here I should swap.
Yes.
Is this okay?
Yes, perfect. I'll jump back.
Right. Okay. All right. Cool. So what we saw, right, was the agenda of something quickly would be, we will have a throwback to Azure NLP, then why they came out with Language Studio. We'll quickly see some features, a working demo, and that would be it, right? Please feel free to put up your questions and answers in the comment window. If we have time, we will reply to you during the session or probably after that, right? Okay. So just for people who have been out there working with cognitive services, these are few of the things which you might have encountered over the past year, where you worked with LUIs, which is language understanding integration services, quite popularly used for chatbots, and Q&A maker for your technical FAQ type of a situation, or text analytics, wherein you extract insights from text, keywords, key phrases, landmarks, celebrities, those kind of things, right? Now all of these offerings were boxed into different sections, I would say. So more often than not, there is a requirement for us to to use all of these in tandem. So when I'm doing a chatbot, probably I would not only use LUIs, but I would also use a Q&A maker sort of a functionality. I would also want, you know, the bot to be able to extract something out of my text, or I would have a text processing sort of a bot wherein I feed documents to the AI, and then I ask questions about it. So more often than not, most of us, you know, would have to have these language understanding NLP features working in tandem together, which is why, you know, I mean, when we had this cognitive services, and here we had language, right? So language was language understanding, analytics, text translator, immersive reader. So what if all of these offerings came in together to offer a more robust platform for us to build our models, to train our models, to use out of the box natural language processing services? So earlier what used to happen was, so I, you know, when I was developing applications like enterprise document search and intelligent enterprise document search, so on top of out of the box cognitive services, we had to have our own NLP models based on Spark processing, or, you know, based on OpenAI GPT. So I mean, all of us NLP aficionados were very happy when Microsoft announced the Language Studio, which was based on the OpenAI GPT-3 paradigm, right? Now, why advanced NLP? So when we are saying an NLP, right? So so right now there is a paradigm shift from just keyword driven search, wherein, you know, you can search documents based on keywords, towards an intelligent enterprise. So users typically are expecting your search engine to do more and more, to do recommendations to them, to have a dynamic summarization of the text, or the document which they are searching, so that they can look at the document gist and then see if it fits their requirements, their searches, right? And probably extract a knowledge graph kind of stuff, right, where you can know primary, secondary, tertiary relationship between documents. So all of these and much more are being expected by enterprises, by end users, as NLP advances. Okay. And so what happens typically is, right, as enterprises garner more and more data, there is a lot of time spent in searching. So for example, you know, this is a real time use case I'm telling you. So we have a use case wherein the client, he is into sustainability, right? So probably when he has documents regarding all of the energy savings and all of, you know, the good sustainability stuff, right? So when people are searching, let's say example, green energy, then that doesn't mean that it should only search for that particular green energy word in the documents. It means that it should search documents which talk about green energy, which imply green energy, like tidal energy. Some documents could be talking about solar energy, some documents could be talking about ESG sort of things, some documents could be talk about energy savings via a use of renewable energy. So all these word semantics also are expected to be churned out by our NLP engines, as you know, as the user search needs grow more and more. So what are the enterprises challenges we have with data, right? So how do you enable our the workers as to become a part of this intelligent enterprise? You have intuitive user interfaces, of course, personalized content search, consolidation of content platforms, which mean, you know, one golden source for all your information, which is intelligent and intuitive, and also gives you recommendations for what to search next, like, you know, probably if you are looking at a renewable energy document. So if you know, people who search this also searched probably about electrical cars, that kind of recommendations, which quite popularly we also have day to day on our social media platforms as well, right? Netflix and Amazon. So people buying this product also buy this product, and those kind of personalized recommendations to users. And more often than not, right, when we talk of NLP, that is used a lot. So NLP finds a lot of traction in the knowledge mining, knowledge association kind of use cases, right? So it could be infographing, It could be bundling content, like grouping similar content together, like a text classification, right? It could be solving NLP problems. So typically, it's not uncommon for users to come to us and say that can your SQL can your natural language query be turned into a SQL query, which means search top 10 ESG platforms, or top 10 ESG companies, or search top 10 companies with the least carbon footprint. So this should be dynamically converted into a SQL query or a NoSQL query, and you should be able to get back a result. So solving these kind of natural language problems, right? Then auto crawling. So you're receiving information. Intuitively searching for information. Next best action is your recommended thing, like what you should do next. Now if you searched for if a type of documents, then what is the action you should take next, right? Social collaboration, of course, right? And best possible information. So getting absolutely a precise information what you need in just like a heartbeat, right? Blink of an eyes, and you click and you absolutely get whatever you want. So all of these, because keeping into account all of these growing needs and growing what you can say expectations from users, Microsoft launched Azure Cognitive Services for Language. So it's also apart from just bundling of the old offerings which you had, like text analytics and all the good stuff with the Q&A and LUIs, right? Language Studio and Azure Cognitive Services for Language, they also give you a lot of other functionalities which are based on the OpenAI GPT paradigm. So OpenAI GPT, as we know, right? So that has been opened up. You have opened OpenAI APIs for which you can sign up and you can explore the features. Even for OpenAI services in Microsoft, it's a gated access right now. So we can request for access, and then once access is granted, we can experiment with all of the good features. But some of the limited features you can still try out with the Language Studio UI, which we will see shortly, right? So yeah, so Language Studio, it is comprising of all of these offerings, right? So it has a visual interface to tag data, to train data. It has a state-of-the-art AI capabilities, out-of-the-box AI, right? And of course, security, right? Whatever data you upload is secure enough. So when we talk of features of the Language Studio, we have we have these concepts like what would the Language Studio help us to achieve. So identify important concepts, which means extract entity relationships. So when I'm talking of probably some documents, I can extract the author, I can extract who was the author, what did he write, what other similar authors contributed for this type of a genre, something like that, right? Then better understand your customer. So what type of documents the customer is searching, what type of keywords the customer is expecting. So have a better customer perception. Then you comprehend information faster, of course, and then there are out of the box models for processing medical information, COVID related specifically, and having a platform where you can establish a conversation and understanding with your customers via LUIS, so language understanding, via custom text classification, via dynamic text summarization, correct? And of course, all this could be scaled to IoT, which is Internet of Things also, for a much more wholesome experience. All right, so let us move on to the demo part of it, where we would be seeing some of the features of Language Studio, for the dynamic text summarization and custom text classification, and we can see how really intuitive and easy it is to operate, right? So let's look at one of the COVID related demo, which is leveraging on the out of the box health model which is built. Okay, so let us for example look at something like so I'm typing ibuprofen, and then when I click search here for ibuprofen, I get, yep, so I get, for example, yeah, so I get all the documents which talk about ibuprofen, right? And then at the left hand side, you can also see that it has extracted what we call as entities here. So when the documents were being ingested, we had some entities extracted out, like the journal, the contributors, right? The body structures which are affected by ibuprofen, the diagnosis in which ibuprofen is used, okay, and family relations, genetic structures for which ibuprofen could be used, the diseases for ibuprofen, the medical classes, like in which ibuprofen belongs, all of these good things, right? So as you see, just one keyword search and it has given me a lot of information, like the papers in which ibuprofen was mentioned, the diseases in which it is being used, correct, the diagnosis for that, the authors who wrote the paper which contained or which talked about ibuprofen, right? And then, okay, I can also explore the graph relationships, which means when I am trying to, it will take a bit of time, right? So when I'm trying to search related to ibuprofen, now I get all the relationships for whatever I want to see. So probably I want to see the contributors to the papers who wrote about ibuprofen, right? So papers that mentioned ibuprofen, and I can see, so this is the central node, ibuprofen, and as you can see all the relationships, primary, secondary, and tertiary, which means the journals which mentioned ibuprofen had a direct relationship, which means probably the paper was written by someone called John Adler, but then John Adler also had collaborated with some other author on some other paper, and you can also see those tertiary relationships here. Let me pull this down. Yeah. So as you can see, John Adler had probably a tertiary, a secondary relationship with some other author on some other paper. Probably you could, change the drop down, and then probably now you would want to see the relationship of ibuprofen with relation to body structures, like what are the body structures which are directly treated or affected by ibuprofen, either as a medication or either as a side effect. So you can see, with just one keyword search, you have a plethora of information at your fingertips, and more than what you probably wanted to know, right? I mean, you can have an understanding of what your data talks about, what are the relationships of between entities of your data, and much more, right? And also, of course, like intuitive suggestion based search, right? So now if I also do something like NSAIDs, and NSAIDs and ibuprofen or more often than not serve the same purpose, right? So we can also do that. We can also have start date and end date for which I want to search the journals or medications or diseases and so on and so forth. All right. In the interest of time, I would love to explain more about this, but let's move on to the language studio. This is the UI of the language studio, wherein you see that you can, what all you can create. You can create, I mean, what are the things you would want to do? Do you want to extract information, want to classify text, want to answer questions, or want to use language conversational understanding, right? So extract information is what your text analytics typically used to do initially, which is extracting keywords, key phrases from your text, extracting personally identifiable information, extracting known celebrities, landmarks, extracting spatial locations. Okay. On top of that, you have something called as document summarization. So document summarization is a very dynamic summary of the documents which you are trying to extract. Okay. So let's say if I click on this document, and instead of reading probably a 10-page or a 15-page document to see if this is what I really want, there is a dynamic summarization given to you right there. And that is also, one of the features which a language understanding has come up with, the NLP, Azure NLP language suite has come up with, which was not that earlier, right? You can classify text also, like, let us look at one of the text classification projects. So what I have here is you can when you say like text classification, you can just go and choose. I mean, you can click a project, click the open text classification, create your own project, and just start off, right? So I have imported certain documents here, and we can go, on the portal itself, you can define the tags. You can define the classes and tag them. So let's say this is a classification of literature, wherein I'm classifying novels as either love stories or adventure stories or war stories or fiction, right? And then as you can see, I have around 210 files imported, and I can directly go on the portal and add a tag. So this one, I added a tag, and this is a dynamic summary generated of the of the file I have ingested. So this is a dynamic summarization of the probably novel or the entire book, and then I'm trying to tag it as a love story. So probably you can go and here a woman in flames, and then probably you can add a class and call it as a thriller, for example, and you can say done, and then you can say the tag this as thriller and save the tag, right? So you can tag all of your documents or your classes here itself, and then you have a button to train the model. You train the model. You can here itself, on the portal itself, test the model for its accuracy. Probably you would want to improve the model by adding more tags or by adding more files for tagging, so that your model accuracy is improved. But all of this, you can see how easier it is with the help of Language Studio for simple case studies where you want to probably classify news items into sports or or politics or economics, financial, those kind of things, right? So for these things, rather than reinventing the wheel and writing NLP models right from scratch for doing classification, this is out of the box, training and these features work wonders for those kind of scenarios, right? Apart from that, you also have language understanding embedded here. So in language understanding, what you typically do is this is same your original language understanding integration services with more features here, right? With more accuracy, with more features. So you do the same thing here. I think, okay, sorry, I opened the wrong. Yep. So in the language understanding also, you have same thing, right? Where you have a part of speech tagging, wherein, for example, I wanted to build a sample application for a mail recognition. So when you extract attachments from mail or delete mail or read mail, that kind of thing. So you have intents, you can have utterances, right? Where I taught the model that, when I say that add PDF file to the signed contract, or attach PowerPoint file, or attach Excel file. So I teach it to understand what is the meaning of attach, intent, and what are the things that it should extract out of it. So all of these things, you can tag right on the portal here. As you can see, I tagged it as a file type entity. I tag this as a file name entity. Okay. And all of these tagging you can do on the portal. You can add more utterances. You could probably upload a direct utterance file where you have thousands of utterances, and then you can tag here, or you can add your utterance here. So intent is probably if you want to add more utterances for an intent of read or delete, you can do it right on the portal, and then you can teach the model here itself on the portal, train and test all on the portal itself, right? So for very a quick a POC sort of things, or just to establish an intent of what you want to do to have a rapid prototyping, Language Understanding Studio works wonders. Of course, you can extract the model, you can deploy the model, and you can then do advanced training on that using the SDKs which they have. So if you don't want to go the portal way, you can have a basic model, and then you can use it further for a deeper training with the custom Azure machine learning, Python notebooks, and all the good stuff around that. Okay, I just want to have a very quick demo for for chatbot, right? Where I just wanted to show you that how intuitive and how exciting NLP has become with the advent of OpenAI and with the advent of all the advancements in BERT, right? So let us for example have this text summarization, dynamic text summarization, wherein you write something, and it summarizes it on the fly, like what we saw here. Oh, okay, it's asking me for login. Yep. Okay. So the text summarization thing you can see here itself, right? So where you have a document or journal with ibuprofen or NSAID running for probably 20 to 30 pages, and then dynamic text summarization gives you probably just a few lines of summary. Even in this case, this was a novel, and dynamic text summarization just gave me a summary which is very readable, and with just the summary I can probably decide whether it is a love story, a thriller, an adventure, or a war, or any other tag I want to add on the run for a document which doesn't fit in the paradigms which I have already defined. All right. So with that, I request all of you to go ahead and try the language understanding services. And yep, so that brings us to the end of our demo. And any questions, I would be happy to take.
Priyanka, that was fabulous. And I'm just in awe of all the things it can do. I hadn't even seen the kind of the webs and stuff of how it all connects to different levels of things that you can look for. That was amazing to see. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know we've got a few questions in the chat. Maybe let's just answer one quickly that we've got, the latest one that came in. How can we connect Language Studio to Composer?
Bot Composer? I assume this is Bot Composer,
yes,
right?
I think it is.
Yeah. So see, Language Studio was just introduced like probably second half of last year, right? And there are a lot of features which we still, so probably, you know, what initially I faced was even the custom text classification, the out of the box tutorials which they were given on the Azure portal were not working correctly, right? So for the connection to Bot Composer, the LUIS connection still do work. So you train a language understanding integration services model, and you can still connect that to the Bot Composer. So most of the connectivity which was already there with Q&A and BERT and LUI still remains the same. So how you used to use your LUIS earlier days in Bot Framework, Bot Composer, right? Those principles still remain the same. Accuracy has increased a lot, and the way in which you can combine all of these three together. So LUIS plus Q&A and plus text analytics plus custom text classification all together, if you want to connect to your Bot Composer, still possible. How to do that is something which I have not tried with the Language Studio, but I did that with LUIS and Q&A and assume that those principles of connecting still hold good. So if there's, you know, if I come across this sort of usage, I will experiment with Tushar and I'll get back to you on that.
Perfect. I think that's very true. And I think especially with all the new products that come out, it's so interesting. Like, they are in preview. They're really amazing to see and use. But yeah, there can be some issues with kind of connectivity across the whole tech stack, I guess, at times. But look, Priyanka, thank you so much for your time. I really, really do appreciate it. I will leave you go. And folks, that is where we wrap up for today. Thank you all for joining. We've got Bryce, Tushar, and Andrew as the winners of the different the gift cards. The gift cards for today. Thank you for joining. There were so many different engaged audience members. We really appreciate it. We love seeing the kind of engagement. It makes it so much easier to be a speaker and presenter throughout these things when you can see that people are interested in the content you're making. So look, I won't keep you on too long. I will leave you get on with your Saturdays, wherever you may be from. Thank you so much for joining in. I really, really appreciate it, and enjoy your weekend. Maybe you've learned something new. Go try out all the different things. Reach out to the people who you learned it from. It makes our day, really. If you saw something today and you give it a try, let the people know. So with that, we will end the stream here today. Hopefully we'll see you back around on Global AI Community sometime soon, and take care.